All right, first item of the agenda is adoption or modification of the agenda. If there's no modification of the agenda, I would accept the motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Give it to Mr. Saxon.
Second. We're good. Ian? Yeah, thank you.
If there's no discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Sorry, our board secretary is out this evening, so we're working through a number of things here. So the consent agenda includes regular session minutes for November 15th, supplemental pay for December, approval of bills for payment in December, Nationals travel request, a personnel report, EGO contract extension, surplus property, and workers' compensation insurance renewal. I might have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's any discussion, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 9.1, comments from the audience. I do not see any. All right. 9.2, the superintendent update.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to start this evening out by recognizing a group of staff members, but to begin with, I would like, would the middle school cheer team please stand, as well as their coach.
No.
Okay.
Coach is not able to, okay. I didn't know if Coach Rupert was going to be able to make it. Recently, our middle school cheer team competed in the regional UCA cheer competition. This is the first time the middle school cheer team has competed since 2016. And all teams, which is somewhat unique in this competition, they are all scored on the same rubric, no matter the size of the school or age of the participants. This group scored higher than 7 other teams, including a varsity local cheer team. I know Coach Jordan couldn't make it. Looks like Coach Rupert couldn't make it either. Would you guys please join me in congratulating our wonderful middle school team? Now, ladies, you're going to be asked to do something that may seem difficult. It is not, I promise. What we're going to ask you to do is just introduce yourself. Would you introduce yourself with your name and the grade that you're in? And then any loved ones that you came with this evening. Please, you got the microphone.
I'm Becca Petty and I'm in 7th grade, and my mom, my dad, and my sister.
Would you guys please wave mom, dad, and sister? Thank you.
I'm Avery Dar and nobody.
Got all of us.
We're all here.
We're here for you.
I'm Brooklyn Wheeler and I'm in 7th grade, and I came with my mom, my brother, and my dad.
I'm JC Carlisle. I'm in 8th grade and I came with my mom. I'm Jamie Schoffer and I came with my mom.
I'm Zoe Rice and I came with my mom. I'm Nora Owen. I'm in 8th grade and I came with my mom.
I'm Hannah Decker. I'm in 7th grade and I came with my mom. I'm Olivia Wheeler. I'm in 8th grade and I came with my mom, dad, and brother.
Yay.
Very good. All right. The last thing we would like you guys to do, if you would please start with Miss Harwood, go through, shake everyone's hand, then we want you to come back up here so we can take a picture.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Congrats. JC. Congratulations.
Great job.
Congratulations, Zoe.
Great job.
Congratulations.
Good job, neighbor.
Great job.
Great job. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Congratulations, troublemaker. Congratulations.
Good job.
Yep. Come right back up here up front.
Great job.
Back.
They also
You know the drill. Are we going up front? Let's go up front. Let's
Okay.
go up front.
Congratulations.
We're going up front.
Going up front.
Stand here and let you guys go.
Sorry, there's not a lot of room there. is there?
Oh,
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. That's right. I'm glad you made it.
Yeah.
Perfect smile. That's right.
You were pushing up.
And 3, 2, 1, 2. Hold on.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Our next group that we would like to recognize engaged in a 3-day safety meeting during the Missouri School Boards Conference a couple months ago. Our internal team engaged in that statewide training. It was focused on school safety. The extensive training ensured that we are following the best practices and keeping our students, staff safe in our buildings. As part of the training, all 4 team members earned their school safety specialist certification. And we would like to recognize these 4 staff members. I believe 3 of them were able to come. First is Mr. Mike Mast, serves at our high school. Officer Buckeye serves at our middle school. Mr. Mendoza, Officer Mendoza, who serves at Maple and Eagle, was not able to make it. And then Mrs. Denise Harwood. If you guys would come up, shake the hands of the board, then we'll take a chance to take a picture of you guys as well.
Congratulations. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for putting in the time, Mr. Mass. Appreciate you.
No.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Next time.
Absolutely. Peace. Yep. I'll let you get it. Picture time.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Someone got a Springfield? Yeah.
We figured out it's probably easier than to stay up here than to keep going back and forth. The last person we would like to recognize was just recognized this last Friday night. On December 8th, the Missouri Football Coaches Association inducted the class of 2023 into their Hall of Fame. We are excited to share that our very own Mr. Jason Ambrosen was part of this class. Coach Ambrosen has previously served as the Moberly High School head football coach before joining Smithville. In 2021, he led the Warriors to their only football state championship. Please join me in congratulating Mr. Ambrosen. And my dad served as a football coach as well, and I think it's only appropriate that we also celebrate the significant other, Mrs. Andrea Ambrosen. Because I am personally convinced behind every amazing football coach, there's a significant other, in this case, Andrea, taking care of so many things that occur because Coach Ambrosen's commitment is truly unmatched. So we would like you to come up. Please shake our hands. Andre, would you as well, so we can shake your hand as well. And take He did not know. He doesn't seem disappointed.
Taking care of you. You're so good.
Congratulations, coach. Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
The high school was able to celebrate you. Correct. Very true. I'm blessed to be part of a great club. You know, and I thought I did about today. Teamwork, love,
I really don't need that. It's just, no, it's part of it. And I think when I'm a reflection of the great people that have mentored, been a part of this whole thing. So I'm really blessed to just, I don't know, just be around so many great people. My cup's full.
You want to everyone to take the stuff like you that you would like to leave your
Grab a cookie.
Yeah,
Ladies, you're welcome to stay though. If you want to stay.
You're always welcome.
We just think you really don't want to.
Don't think I've.
Just got pumpkin bars. Jackie loves this. Jackie is so good to us. The sauce is amazing.
That's nice and you can be in front row.
Yeah, right. I know. So the other pieces I had just for my update, I did want to share that Clay County did pass ordinance number 2023, ordinance number 42, which does implement what is known as Senate Bill 190, which is the senior tax credit. The plan for that is to begin occurring in 2025 with seniors, those qualifying that have a primary residence that they own, live there 51% of the time, can apply for that tax credit if they are over 62. I haven't heard the official timeline. Last I heard was supposed to be sometime between January, and I've heard anywhere from March to September. I have not heard anything specific more than that. Have you? Okay. So just want to make sure that everyone was aware. I did share the November entry plan. I am not sure that Karen was able to put that in the board packet. The biggest thing that I highlighted this month was the ability to visit all the buildings during this first semester and spend a day there. I was able to visit the high school and Horizon over the last couple weeks. That has been a tremendous time to be able to hear in a very small group, hear directly from our staff members. We invite all staff members who would want to attend. I stay the whole day. Michelle, Denise, and Robert have come at different times based on their schedule, but we're able to hear directly from them, hear some of the same things we heard earlier tonight during exec, kind of that balance of how do we make sure we keep our small class sizes or keep reducing those as well as increase compensation. But something that we will without a doubt continue next semester. We have sent out surveys. All the surveys have been positive in response. I think right now what we're going to try to figure out is the frequency of those building visits and how do we make sure that all staff feels that they have that opportunity. But the conversations have been great. And I think part of the big reason for that is it's in smaller groups because it's either during their grade level time, their block off, those different pieces. And I would also share the Monday before Thanksgiving break, we did a cabinet retreat to begin talking about this upcoming school year and what 24-25 is going to look like for us. Dr. Cradfield is going to be retiring. So we wanted to make sure and pick her brain as much as we could to help inform our work moving forward. And then we took that to our administrators the next meeting to start thinking into that 24-25 plan, as well as what other pieces are coming up from as they work in their buildings regarding our strategic plan and that next implementation. Friday, we had our student advisory superintendent's committee. They are always a fantastic group. The big topic this month was parade procedures. So did a lot of really good brainstorming, gave us some pieces to take back. Kind of the next step we are in that phase is we're working through the hiring of our new assistant principal and athletic director, working with that person and Mr. Moore. We're going to meet with Chief Lockridge, Mrs. Wagner, the city manager, to start talking about what that looks like. But they had great ideas of, let's think about, we're not going to walk beside floats. If anyone does walk, it's only in between. I've talked about what is the best way to hand out candy or treats. They even had some reflections of those that went to the holiday parade that happened on December 2nd as well. Like, here's some things that we had some concerns. One of the things I thought was really interesting is they're like, well, we just need to tell the kids to not go after the candy. It's so much easier. Or just tell them. And it's like, okay, so let's walk through that. But it's a good process to hear their thinking, because when you send that question back, okay, I want you to think back when you were 7. Did you have the self-control to not run after that piece of candy? Like, well, no, I don't know. But even we have staff members that come and opt into that all the time to be part of it, is maybe being more purposeful and strategically placing ourselves throughout the parade and making sure that we share the square is the most popular spot of the parade. We always know that. But the kids noticed a lot of open in the commercial part and making sure that people know we are on commercial as well if they do want to spread out. And I think that's the best place to get candy because they haven't thrown it all out yet. You can always walk down to the square and follow them. So, but really good conversation. We finished that meeting by splitting up, and we had some high schoolers give some feedback to our 7th and 8th graders and say, here's what I wish I would have known coming into high school. And then we asked those 7th and 8th graders to take that back to Mr. Winterbore and say, hey, here's what our high school friends are telling us. And then we had a separate group of middle school share with the high schoolers, like, here's what I'm most nervous about. How do I know where my class is? Where's the restroom? Those different pieces. So just having that conversation, and then those middle schoolers sharing those concerns, those high schoolers took that back to Mr. Moore so he can think of what that entry plan looks like for 8th graders moving forward. So really good conversation. They were a great group. Chick-fil-A, JC, definitely popular one to bring in. We got the Chick-fil-A nugget tray. It's supposed to feed 25. There were 16 kids there, and we quickly ran out. So we're going to figure out ordering, but it really has been valuable to have their voice, particularly in things that are high impacts to them and high value to our community, like the parade. So those were my updates, Mr. Bunker.
Questions for Dr. Moss? All right, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, 9.3, Assistant Superintendent for Academic Services.
Thank you. I am going to start by turning this over to Lisa Quinn. Oh, there you are. I'm like, where did she go? Yeah.
And
Lisa.
we got a microphone.
Yeah, just for the people at home. It's for
Yes.
so they can hear you.
Yes, you have to.
Much better talking to children, just to let you guys. My name is Lisa Quinn. For those of you that don't know me, I've been in the Smithville School District at Maple for 24 years. This is my 28th year in teaching and my 19th year as a reading interventionist. So, and I have loved my stay here, and my kids are graduates from Smithville. I wanted to first thank you and the district so much for the investment and the opportunity that I've had, and I have 2 colleagues here as well, in the Take Flight training and program. It has made a major impact on my life, my students' life, my parents' life. I wanted to share a little bit about that. currently right now you've provided training to 5 teachers. We're in our second year of training and final year. At the end of this year, we have the opportunity to take an assessment that will allow us to be certified academic language therapists. There are very few of those in Missouri, and you will have 5 of those here in the district. We also have one staff member who sought out training on her own. She did her first year of training last summer and is working through that. Just a little bit of background. Research says that 1 in 5 people have dyslexia. It can be anywhere from mild to profound. There is no cure, and it's not a quick fix. So these students and people must have systematic, explicit instruction in the 5 core areas of reading, and Take Flight covers that. In my 19 years of teaching, I've been through a lot of training and a lot of good training. This is one that encompasses all of those areas. So this benefits our most at-risk kids that we would consider tier 3 children. And again, I wish I would have had this when I started teaching reading 19 years ago, or even in the classroom 28 years ago. I think it would have made a huge difference. I wanted to share a little bit of the impact on students. Not only are we seeing a huge achievement rise, but we're also seeing with test scores and just classroom daily routines, we are seeing an increase in attendance. These are a lot of kids that don't like to come to school because everything is hard for them. And they finally feel comfortable and feel like they are having some success. And so we're seeing attendance increases, and we're also seeing behavior decrease. So we've had less office referrals from these kids. Classroom teachers are mentioning they're having less issues in the classroom. And so we're pleased with that. Impact on parents. I think last time that we came and did a large presentation for you, we shared excerpts from parents and just how grateful they are and thankful they are for this, how difficult it is for them when we sit in conferences and they're in tears. And so they're very grateful. And also, I mean, to be honest with you, we've had parents that are spending over $1,000 a month. They were spending it for outside services for their children, and now they're able to get the supports here at school. So they are very grateful. And classroom teachers as well are very grateful. We're also able to share our knowledge with them and provide some interventions and accommodations they can use in the classroom. So my second reason for coming tonight, again, most of all, to thank you for this. We need help. We are maxed. We have back-to-back groups, most of us. All of us are tutoring either before or after school. I know most of us are tutoring an hour beyond the school day, 4 days a week. We do this to alleviate some of our school load during the day so that we can help more children. I know there's a lot of logistics to additional staff. I've been in the business long enough to know that. And there's a lot of logistics to this program. For instance, to be trained in the program, you have to be certified. So a certified educator. So again, I know there's a lot of logistics to it. We're all very passionate about what we do. And we would love to visit more with you about it if you have any questions at another time. I know tonight I said I would be quick.
Goodbye.
We love what we do. We want all of these kids to reach their utmost potential. And so I just have a quote that I wanted to share to end with. And it says, "The benefit of knowing how to read go far beyond academic achievement. Literacy leads to personal empowerment, academic success, informed decision-making, active civic participation, improved self-esteem, and increased economic opportunities." So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. It's great to hear that all the time and effort that's gone into this is having an impact on kids. So
I was, you know, I know we won't get into the specifics of what it looks like logistically and operationally as we go, but I would hope that we have an opportunity to discuss as we look at the future operating structure and budget as we get ready for this next financial year. Because for me, I was having this conversation today. I have a kiddo who's been a part of this program, and I'm a huge advocate and fan of it because I've not only seen what it's done for him, but when you have an opportunity to serve our most at-risk kids and bring them along, you know, I think the behavioral reductions that we're seeing is directly correlated to the confidence and empowerment that our kids are starting to develop. And I've seen that within my own child that I would implore the board that we have this conversation and seriously consider what its expansion across our district really looks like. Because we talk about what tools can we arm our children with and our educators with to move the needle. This is it. Fundamental.
I like identifying those overlooked variables such as attendance, you know, kids that aren't confident coming to school because they're scared of performance related issues. Building that confidence, obviously attendance is directly correlated to numerous things, including student achievement. But I mean, when we talk about operations, financially, attendance is a big driver. So I thank you for pointing out those things that are easily overlooked.
I understand the training itself is fairly expensive and the commitment is. However, there was a mention of a staff member that's taken upon his or herself to do the training themselves. Can we elaborate more on that?
That teachers being supported with professional development funds as well. So we have contributed to
So
that.
we have contributed, but we're not covering completely.
Not covered completely.
What is there a plan for that individual? Are we trying to bring them in this entire plan? Are we trying to make up the gap? Because we paid for that before. So what's the plan with this?
So we're in discussions right now, looks like to expand and train additional people. You know, it makes sense to especially look at some of our special education teachers. The funds that we use to train the first 5, we use some ESSER funds for that, which we don't have access to any longer. And so we had made a commitment to pay for one person from each building. If we're going to begin paying for additional people, that needs to be equitable, or we need to look at the needs of each building and determine how we're going to allocate those funds. So that we're still in the planning stages. We know that we need additional people to be trained. So we've got to figure out what that looks like.
Okay, because that was going to be my next question is what's the next step with this program? And how many more individuals do we think that our district needs?
It's a tad bit messy right now. I mean, Julie can attest to that at the high school. You know, we not knowing what the demand would be when we went into it. There's a lot more demand than we had anticipated. This program helps more kids than we knew it would help. So, you know, Lisa is actually screening high school students for us and providing recommendations. Lisa and Leah are both using their plan time in order to service kids. Yeah, it's messy.
Do we have opportunities through things such as career ladder to help support all the additional time too?
Oh, yes, but they're going to run out of that fast. They will run out of that very fast. So you're done. Yeah, I figured you were probably done a month ago. So
Yeah, I didn't want to make the assumption you guys were enrolled in that part of it too, but I was hoping we would be for anyone who's going down that road, working and doing all that extra work.
I think we need to, you know, part of the collaboration, we've had conversations in cabinet. We need to engage the building principals in that as well and really identify who would be the people that would be able to best serve kids with this additional training. Or others, you know, there are other interventions also that we've trained staff in, at least 4 different interventions that are not as intensive as the Take Flight, but also have great impact on kids. And those individuals don't necessarily need to be a certified teacher. So, you know, can we maximize that as well? And then how do we accommodate when we have a student who's identified in November that they need an intervention? How do we accommodate that when we've already got groups going? So we just have to figure out some logistics around it. We're experiencing a lot of growing pains right now.
Do we expect the plan to be put together before we discuss our budget next year?
Could be.
What's the time frame?
So kind of 2 different things I would say is, one, truly looking at what our need is, and not our need as, I guess I want to make sure when we use the word equitable isn't equal. So we need to look at the number of students that are being identified at each building.
Right.
And then I determine what support services we have to provide that support based on the student need. And then look at, are we able to fill that with perhaps training more staff? Is it an additional staff member? Is it an extension of a staff member's calendar to figure out what that looks like? So things that roll around in my head with this as I've looked at some of the numbers is right now, as Dr. Creditfield shared, we identified people per building. I think now, is it a per building, or do we have someone that's more centralized that then serves based on the nimbleness of what we're identifying within the school? As well as making sure those people that we train, are we able to provide the time either within their day or within their schedule to provide that service, or does that not work out? We have a person here that's a great example in Leah and what she's doing in her schedule right now and what Lisa's doing in their schedule. So, and Julie's doing in their schedule. So if that's not sustainable, what's the pivot?
Yeah, because it sounds like the current staff is maxed out.
We're maxed.
And
Maxed with time and minutes.
and we're maxed out already for this year. Yeah, you'll have certain families that the modality of before or after school is acceptable. And you're going to have other families where that's a challenge, and how do we meet that kid's need and all those things. It's a growing pain, but it's an exciting growing pain. And
No, you're right.
I look forward to the maturity of what this could really do for our district.
Well, and just so the board is aware, we do have a former staff member who is trained in this, and I have reached out to her to see if we could contract with her, and she's already devoted to another school, and so we have even tried to go that route to find additional support.
We'll have a plan next month.
We'll work on it tomorrow. Just a few other things for you. We are still in the process of fleshing out the 24-25 academic calendar. An additional survey went out today to get staff preferences on the arrangement of some full day PD and work days for our staff. Based upon a previous survey, I think our late starts are going away, and we'll move to more full days off. The recouping those minutes allows us to make that move and have at least one day every month for the most part, where teachers would have either a work day or a PD day. There is some talk about a full week off at Thanksgiving. And so one of the options is to move a work day and a PD day into that week. So those are things that we're playing with. And right now we're gathering feedback from our staff. So I fully anticipate that we will have a calendar for you in January. Yeah, that's very exciting. Our aspiring principals started last week. So we have two, Brett Marshall and Tina Shaganaw. Tina, you met at our new teacher reception. So she came to us from St. Joseph, both social studies teachers at the high school. So we will meet with them 3 times. They will have an opportunity to go to a workshop for aspiring principals. And then if you recall, prior to your May board meeting, they will present their projects to you. So they are in the process of figuring out what those things are. In addition to the meetings that we hold for them, they also are doing things such as supervision. They will attend a board meeting. They may come in person or they might attend online. Either one of those is fine. They'll come to one of our district admin meetings. They will shadow principals in the building. So they really get a sense for what is it to be a building principal. But then through our meetings that we have, in January and February, they also get a taste for what district administration looks like. So really trying to give them an all-encompassing view there. And they're wonderful and have really embraced this, and they're going to be a fun pair to work with. Our new teacher program, we have one more meeting for our year 1 folks and one more meeting for our year 2 folks. And then the rest of their program, they will work on individually with their principals using a self-assessment and goal setting. Again, a wonderful group of new teachers from this year and last year, really embracing the learning and always rich conversations and just professionals to the top, and very, very pleased with that. We have decided to make a change in our Kagan cooperative learning training based upon this past year. I don't know if you recall, but last summer, the summer before this past one, our trainer got sick, and rather than do a virtual cooperative learning training, we canceled it and trained both our brand new teachers and the teachers we had hired last year this summer. And what we discovered is it's a lot more effective to have that year of teaching and then do the training than to do everything at the beginning. So we are going to take a hiatus for one summer. And then the summer of 25, we will have our Kagan trainer back, and they will train the people that we hire for next school year. So that is, kind of interesting how you step into something like that and figure out that, oh, this is a better way to do it. So anyway, that is, one more thing. I did find out today that our career ladder dollars have been allocated to us, $354,000 from the state. And that is all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Questions for Dr. Catterfield? All right, thank you very much, Dr. Catterfield. I appreciate your service and wish you well in retirement.
Thank you.
Next up, 9.4, Executive Director for Support Services.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blumker. On the screen, you can see I've shared our construction update for this month. Of course, the main project we're working on right now is our transportation facility, and someone called it Mount Hedgecourt the other day. All the dirt out there, thought it was pretty good. We have hit our compaction. So you've probably seen them starting to take some of that dirt off of that, and they're starting on the process of grading the bus parking lot pad where the bus will actually park and actually charge diesel engines, especially in the cold weather. And so you'll start to see that. You'll start to see some footers put in where the actual building pad is going to be. And we are hoping with good weather, knock on wood, we'll be done with that parking lot pad by the end of the year. So the end of December. So once January comes around, especially late January, you should see some structures starting to go up, and it's going to go up quick with being a prefab building. Of course, there's a wainscot brick around that prefab, and then of course they'll start on the inside of it. So things are going fast and furious. Some of the pictures you can see here is just them starting to remove some of the soil from that store charge. And then some utilities that they're bringing in, the water and the sewer line. You guys may remember the Stonebridge lift station. We had the MOU with the city with, taking the sewer out to there and getting all that tied in. So they're starting to do a lot of that work right now. The other project this next summer is our HVAC at middle school and Horizon. Of course, we have the VAV boxes that are going in each room. So step one was this last summer for new units. Step two is the VAV boxes in each room. They give that individual control and will help them moderate those temperatures, where instead of having one unit control 5 rooms, yes, it's still one unit, but now you have 5 VAV boxes that can help individualize that space. So we're continuing to monitor those rooms and really look at what's needed in each area. And so I'm doing that analysis right now, and then continue to work with folks as we go down the road and then have that ready for a summer project. So that is what's going on as far as construction goes. I did want to give you an update in regards to our data center, Golden Plains Technology Park, and also Rocky Branch Creek. Some good news and bad news. So I'll start with the good news first. Good news is on the Rocky Branch Creek side, some of the board members had even mentioned this and pointed this out, that on Compass KC, that Rocky Branch Creek submitted their master development plan. So that is good news. I called Michael Hanley from Diode. He did confirm that the sale that is going to close this quarter. So before December 31st, the sale that will close. So that's good. That means that we're going to start seeing some progress on that side of the street. 100% within Smithville School District, 100% of those pilot dollars come to us. So great news. On the other side of the road, Golden Plains Technology Park with Meta. Michelle Cradfield and I met with their educational liaison, I guess would be the official title.
Is the community liaison.
Community liaison. And so she had a lot of great information to share with us. Unfortunately, the city let the bond expire, which the bond is what triggers the funding through Kansas City. Yeah, not City of Smithville, but through Kansas City. And basically the reason it was expired is because KCMO felt like they did not meet the goals for minority and women-owned businesses that they had for that project. Meta felt like that there were a lot of reasons why they didn't, and they submitted that to the city. So kind of their executives are going back and forth on that. They said they're going to fly in some executives before the end of the year and hope to get that resolved. The current building they have that you see is shaped like an H. Some people call it 2 buildings. You can call it one. Either way, I've heard both terminologies, but you kind of have that H shape with the middle. The next building is not going to look like that at all. They've redesigned the whole process to make it more efficient. It's just going to look like a single rectangle. So they've already modified the efficiencies of how they can build these things just within this first building going to the next. So so hopefully Casey Moe and Meta can work through those details and get those things going. And I'll continue to keep you guys updated as I hear news. So she was very helpful. She also said, I asked her if she could give us updated pro formas. She was going to sit it off to their economic development team and see what they could do. And I said, even if you don't know what the future is going to bring, at least give us something of, if you stop building right now, could you at least tell us the minimums that we're going to get from these pilot payments so we can at least start planning? And so she was going to try to help us out with that, give us that information and go from there. So as I get stuff back from them, we'll definitely share that with the board and let you guys know along the way.
Also, it's part of that meeting. They have committed to provide some donations to our SWAT team. So I know they presented to us several times, once last year. And so Dylan has provided me with a list of things that they would need, and they're going to sponsor them. We got lucky because someone who they had promised funds to didn't get all the paperwork in. And because of the gala and the foundation already going through that process and being approved, she just called me up and said, in addition to the funds that I had promised you for next year, I've got some left in this fiscal year that we'll give you too. So I'm not quite sure how much it is, but any little bit will help. And our SWAT sponsors are pretty happy.
Yeah. They also donated, I believe, $200,000 to the Workforce Development Center that the Northland is working towards as well. So that was a great donation from them and very, very generous. So, yeah.
Relative to the bonds, we're, roughly 40% of our spend so far spent
On our construction. Yeah. Yeah.
So
There is a graphic in the agenda there that does show spent to date and then what we have left.
like 10-ish million, a little under 10.
That is correct. Yeah. So the total right now you can see on there is about 17.59. We received about 18 million in proceeds because we sold the bonds at a surplus. Then we're looking at about $600,000 to $700,000 in interest off that. As we accumulate, we have to be careful about arbitrage, which means we can't earn so much interest because the interest we're earning is more than the interest we're paying.
Yeah.
So they have rules around how you have to spend that down, like 10% in the first 3 months. You have to spend like 35% within the first year and 100% within 2 years. And so we're meeting all those goals. So we'll be able to keep all that interest. We don't have to give that back to the IRS.
Yeah.
So that's good news. So we'll have a nice number there to work with for all our projects overall.
I'm gonna hit you with a question that I know nobody's gonna answer, but
Sure.
relative to the projects, obviously we've hit things such as the rock at the transportation facility, compaction at the middle school field that we'll address later, talking about that. Relative to the roughly $10 million we have to spend, those specific projects, the things you can't really find as a cost until you dive into the project, how comfortable are we that most of those are behind us?
Sure. I feel like the transportation was the big one with the rock. Once the engineers got into the high school gym, they did realize there was a bunch of structural steel they did not anticipate. And so they've already identified that. So I feel like there's nothing more. The bids that you have tonight in a later agenda item compensate for that. And they basically have those priced in there.
Yeah.
They could get, I guess, a little bit more into the high school gym that they didn't realize once they start doing some things.
Sure.
But I don't anticipate on a large scale because it's a smaller project anyway compared to like the transportation facility and others.
Those
So
projects already have the contingencies in place.
the HVAC could see a little bit with electrical service as they start getting in and upgrading the electrical service. They might find some things. I wouldn't think it would be, too large of scale because the rock was about $100,000 at the transportation facility.
So that VAV portion is what you're referring to. Once they get into that, there could potentially be, we don't really know that until they start programming those, right?
Correct. Yeah. And the good thing is between what's shown on the budget now and what we have, we're about $1 million under of what we'll have in total. A lot of it based on the interest we run.
Sure.
Honestly.
Sure. But I mean, at least most of these projects were far enough into the scope of work, but not necessarily the spend to have identified a lot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All the
overrun.
Absolutely. Yeah. All the engineers, all the design, we feel like we've really vetted out because those specialists have been able to do that.
Yeah.
The rock's a hard one because you just, it's underground and you just can't see it. you can have the geotechs come in and give you an idea, but until you dig down, yeah, sure. And we do have contingencies built in just in case some of those happen. And even though we hit 100,000 rock, we still didn't use up all our contingency. So.
Additional questions for Mr. Headcourse on this topic? All right, and if, as we prepare to move into 10.1 financial review, if there are no objections, I'd like to move Mr. Steele up in the agenda and have him go after the general financial review to allow him to present and get on home if there's no objection to that. With that, we'll move to 10.1 general financial review. So Randy and Brad, if you want to get ready for your presentation.
Sure. We have our yearly, well, monthly, but yearly cycle showing all of our spends from previous years, last November, in this general financial review, like typical. Then also an update, you know, that shows some of the current spend that we've had this year that was unanticipated. So be happy to answer any questions.
No questions for Mr. Hedgeworth on this one? All right, thank you very much. We will go ahead and jump forward then to 11.1 FY23 financial audit. We've got Brad from Westbrook here to share the work that they did this year.
Yeah, I think he's gonna pull that in. Like I said, my name's Brad Steele.
Can you grab the microphone? I think he's got one for you. Sorry.
My name is Brad Steele. I'm with Westbrook & Company. We prepared your audit this year. Your audit's about 50 or 60 pages. I've got a PowerPoint that kind of summarizes everything as far as financial wise. So if you have any questions on anything as we go through that, feel free to stop me at any time and we can look at it. If it's something that's not in our PowerPoint, we can still look at it. So we'll see if it's going to work. No problem. So yeah, it may not work. So you may have to think. Oh, it did? Okay, good. Okay. So the first thing I always want to point out is the independent auditor's report. In paragraph 2, it states there, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. It means you had a clean audit. That's what your bonding company's looking for. That's what DESI looks for. Anybody that looks at your financial statements, your audited financial statements, this is one of the first things they're going to look for, make sure you got a clean audit, and you did. Next thing I want to point out here, and I may be able to tell you those numbers, I may not be able to, but anyway. This shows you down the left-hand side, governmental activities and the expenditure. And in the middle there, there's revenues that are specifically related to each one of those activities. So you can see there on transportation, you got almost maybe 1.8 million. I can't see exactly. 1.7 million in expenditures. And then the program revenues there in the middle. And then so the true cost to the district, even though they spent 1.7 million, it's about 890,000 because they had reimbursement coming from the state government on that. This is okay. Sorry. This is your balance sheet. And what's this showing is your cash and cash equivalents by fund. So your capital project fund is what it says it is. That's where all your capital projects come out of. Debt service is where all your bond money, principal and interest payments come through. Special revenue is all your certified staff get paid out of special revenue. I want to point out the reason that's zero, that's 99, not 100% of school districts in the state of Missouri zero that out. You're allowed to transfer money or code revenues over there to zero that out. And then the general fund is everything else. This is your breakout of your fund balance. This is the breakout of your fund balance on the restricted and assigned. You got restricted for professional development in the general fund. All your debt service is restricted by law. You have to spend on principal and interest, and your bond and your capital projects fund, the unspent bond proceeds. Those are restricted. The assignment, that's going to go with your student activities, your food service, anything that's in your capital projects fund is assigned. And at the bottom there is your unassigned and your general fund and what's left over. This is your revenues and expenses by fund. You can see that your general, special revenue, debt service, capital projects. And at the bottom there, it shows your revenues over expenditure. So you had a positive year, which is good financially. There's your net change in fund balance by fund. And you can tell your net change on your capital projects fund. A lot of that has to do with those bond proceeds coming in and just haven't been spent by you. This is your long-term debt. You see your bonds payable, your certificates of participation, the balance at the beginning of the year, your additions, the retirements during the year, and your balance at the end, June 30, 2023. And then the last column there is your amounts due within 1 year on the principal side. These are your bonds payable through maturity, principal, and interest payments. And also the same on your certificates of participation. The next three are graphs that kind of summarize financially where you're at. This is your revenues, comparison revenues by source. And you can see there, although your revenues are up, and we take your bond proceeds out of this, so that it doesn't skew from year to year, anything unusual like that. But you can see as your revenue, goes up and down over the last 5 years, your sources of revenue stay pretty consistent. And that's pretty typical for school districts. This is the same type of graph for your expenditure side. And so you can see there, we take out all your debt service payments so it doesn't skew a bit. This on your operating budget, you're looking at over 70% of your operating budget comes from personnel costs. So, and that's pretty typical for school districts too, is having like, above 70% personnel costs are coming from your operating budget. The most important graph we have is this one here, your reserve ratio. So this shows in your operating funds how much you have in reserves compared to your operating expenditure. And when I say operating, I'm talking about your general fund and special revenue fund. You can see there you're about 24%. Good. We like to see all our districts. We get the question a lot: is where would you like schools to be, or where do you think schools to be? We like to see all our schools at 20% or above. So you guys are there, and that's great. The next down there is average daily attendance. So this is, we were talking about a revenue driver, your attendance, kids in the seats. That's one of the revenue drivers you have. And this is your average daily attendance over the last 5 years. We gave our opinion on your financial statements. We also have to give an opinion on your compliance with Missouri laws and regulations. And this is your report on Missouri laws and regulations, and you met those requirements and fairly stated in all material respects to your assertion. So that's good. We look at your internal controls as a way to plan for our audit. We don't give an opinion on it, but if we see something, we bring it to your attention. This is the same one you've had in the past as far as significant deficiencies on your internal control. It's, in the past, it's been up and it's a material weakness a few years ago. You've got a lot of mitigating controls in place that allow us to bring that down to a significant deficiency, which is good. Some things that the controls are still there on the staff. So this is a summary of the results. You can see that the unmodified opinion in financial statement audit, which is clean opinion, which is good. We talked about the significant deficiency there. We have to give an opinion on your federal expenditure, your federal awards. So anything, so we have to test your federal expenditures and have a certain amount of coverage. So with the ESSER funds and all that, your federal expenditures were higher. But we found no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the internal control of the federal awards, and you've got a clean opinion on that as well. At the bottom, I always point this out. There is a auditee qualified as a low-risk auditee. It's marked no. That is because you're not gap basis. You're not accrual basis. So 99.9% of the school districts in the state of Missouri are cash basis, and they're going to have that marked no. There's the segregation duty we were talking about, and at the bottom there are the findings and question costs, major federal awards program audit. There were none. We also have a required communications. This is where we give some what we could call immaterial or recommendations that we have. And I went over this with your staff. Did you guys have a chance to look over them and have any questions on those?
Yes.
Okay.
Your first comment there on the budget,
Uh-huh.
the special revenue fund.
Yep.
Can you expand a little bit more on that?
So on the budget, you're required to put in, of course, revenues by fund, by revenue object. You're also required to put in your expenditures by function and object. There's a budget summary that was made that shows your revenues, expenses that would show your budgeted transfers. So your budgeted transfers were not included in the original budget, and that's why that was a deficit. The general fund, the capital project fund, the debt service fund has enough. If you have revenues if you have expenditures above your revenue, you have enough in your beginning fund balance and all those different funds to cover that. But in the special revenue fund, if you don't have your original budget, if you don't have your original transfers in or you don't have your budgeted transfers in your original budget, in your special revenue fund, it starts from zero. So if your expenditures are above your revenue, you're going to budget deficit in that. So it's real easy fix. You just have your budget summary as part of your budget document, and it shows your beginning fund balance, your revenues, expenditures, transfers, and then
What is our materiality threshold on this audit?
I'd have to double check my work papers. It'd be, we do a calculation and it's based on our professional judgment. I don't know. I couldn't tell you exactly what that is.
Our threshold is. How much are we talking about on the sales tax? Second comment there.
Again, I would have to look back in the work paper. I couldn't tell you right offhand. It was only for 1 year because you haven't had it open very long, but you'll get all that back, I'm assuming.
Yeah, when the War Activity Center was built, they put sales tax on there. So Leslie Myers already contacted the company. They've already started the process of reimbursing us for that sales tax that should not have been charged.
But we don't know. You don't know about approximately how much we should expect.
I want to say it was somewhere between 10 and 20,000 on the sales tax, but please don't quote me on that number. I'm just totally ballparking.
Is that something you'd like us to bring back in January?
Yeah, we can give you an update on the total refund that came from those
Yeah, that
taxes.
would be great.
Yeah.
I think we should have a fairly good idea.
Anything else?
Just this specifically or just in general?
Either one.
Okay. Your current financial issues and concerns, typically every year I've always seen this listed. The need for salary increases in order to be competitive with surrounding school districts. Where should we be for that financial concern to be removed? Yeah.
That's not in, as far as I know,
What's that?
that financial concern for us.
Yeah, there's a statement that
Look
says,
at page 13. of the
yeah, that
audit.
talks about us being competitive from a salary perspective. It's been in the last couple of years audits as well. And I believe it's, a general statement. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Right.
That's part of the audit, but that's not our concern. That's
Okay.
Yeah. It's something we'll,
Just management
yeah,
concern.
that's main.
yeah.
There's a MD&A at the beginning of the audit, and that's main discussion and analysis. That gives management the opportunity. We put together the financials to make in the MD&A to make sure they manage the audit. The verbiage in there, there's some standard verbiage, but all that concerns come from me.
Okay.
We kind of talked about that with our comprehensive school improvement plan and make sure our CSIP matches what we want. So that kind of fits right in with those goals.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
If I can expand on the first one that talks about the special revenue fund. So what happened is in the working budget, basically 4 lines got cut off at the end that show that transfer. So in the January budget revision, I'll have the first 2 that show what that was. Because basically when I save it as a PDF, those 4 lines got cut off that show the transfer because Fund 1 to Fund 2. So it's illegal to end the year in negative of Fund 20 or the special revenue fund. And so we always transfer funds from Fund 1 to Fund 2 to do that. And it shows that transfer at the bottom. They just got cut off on the PDF. So we'll have that at the January meeting to show what that transfer needs to be.
It's nice to have an audit that finds reimbursement, so thanks for that.
You can do that every year?
See what happens.
And I just want to say thank you for, called a couple times on different questions and you've always been supportive and helping. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Well,
Thanks,
no
Brad.
problem. And I do want to say when I'm in front of the board, now there's some news. You may have heard this before, but I've always appreciated coming to Smithville because your administrative staff, even though, the staff will turn over some, the tone is set at the top here where if things, it's not, okay, it's wrong, something's wrong or something went wrong and we just shove it aside. It's okay, now how do we fix that? How do we make sure it doesn't happen again? How, it's always been that way here. That's really important for us and it should be important for you guys too to know because it's not like that in every district that we're at. And your staff have things ready when we come. And so when we come, we're here, the audit is prepared over with your staff over the whole year. But we're in here for 3-4 days and we hit the ground running. And so we're asking a lot of questions. We have a list before we come, but then when there's a lot of questions, and a lot of things we pull while we're here. And your staff keeps us moving and we're allowed to have a full staff and be mostly wrapped up before we leave. And that doesn't happen in every district too. We really appreciate that because you guys, your staff is ready for us when we come. We appreciate that. So thank you.
Any additional questions for him? All right. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll jump back up to 10.2, policy GCPB, resignation of staff members.
Very good. So, thank you. I provided a memo with some additional information that we've been discussing about this policy. Tried to break it down into some of the things that kind of rose to the top of the list that I think the board seems to be in support of now. But I did want to have an opportunity to discuss any of the pieces of that you would like tonight and dig in a little further if we need to.
Thank you. I know this is one we've talked a lot about. How do we get this right? And I appreciate that there were a number of folks who helped provided input to what the proper answer is. So thank you for everyone who participated in this. Questions or thoughts from the board?
I appreciate the changes you were working on with the liquidated damages. I know that, we're not looking to like vote on that or anything tonight, but I definitely think we're moving in the right direction. I think that's good. So tonight from us, did I understand that we need to try to see if we want to do the 1,000 incentive for early notification and add classified and non-classified on there? Is that correct? Or
Right. So the first bullet point there is the $1,000 early notification incentive. Currently, we have that in place for certificated staff members. We would like to ask the board to approve that for our classified staff as well. We know that it's if someone's been in the district for a while, if they meet these qualifications of 5 or more years in the district, qualifying for peers or PSRS retirement, we definitely want to reward early notification so that we can have time to fill that vacancy for someone who's been with the district for a good period of time.
I definitely think that's a good idea. And I know even, it's hard to find a lot of classified staff too, as well as the certified. So the early notification is good.
We felt like we had good support for that from the board and from our staff members that we talked to. All of the leadership groups for the district was in favor of that. They felt that was a good, equitable thing to put in the policy. So
I think that question, why do we offer an incentive, for people that are leaving for whatever reason, but it makes sense that the value that we would get
And this is for retirement
Yes.
specifically.
So different situation.
Right. This
Yeah.
one is for retirement.
Yeah. I also appreciate the feedback about the flex non-work day.
Mhm.
Adding a pay type to that. Do you have anything else to add other than what's in that?
Vicky and I were able to meet the other day, and the feedback from the certified staff salary and benefits committee was similar. Definitely would be a good deposit for a stay notification to have a non-work day. Talked a little bit about adding a monetary value to that, but with the understanding that really the purpose behind that is, like you said, if we're paying somebody to notify us that they're leaving, what can we do for current staff to give us that commitment early that they are staying with the district? And so basically the concept of the flex non-work day is to say, we know that 98% of our staff members are going to need a day off at some point throughout the school year. So that first day off, hey, that's on us. You can save that annual leave day for payout at a later date. That first absence of the school year is on us. And so it's just a nice deposit for that. If we added value to that day, we would have to look at what is the cost of that. If we equated it to a flat rate or substitute rate of pay, it's something that both certified and classified committees said that they would be open to, or suggested what happens if somebody doesn't take a day off. It's rare, right? But in that case, could we have a monetary value associated with it? And I feel like the monetary value is a point that we could maybe hold and discuss later if you wanted to move forward with that stay. I'm calling it the stay incentive. Definitely, I don't know that it's going to incentivize anybody to stay to get one freebie day off. But again, it's kind of like a thank you for committing back to the district and letting us know early. So I don't know if that answered your question, Whitney.
I'm still confused about it.
You're confused about the flex on work day.
So where are we on that subject matter about the flex non-work day?
We gathered feedback from our leadership groups. And again, where their feedback was, they think it would be a positive deposit for our staff, but it's not something that's going to necessarily make somebody stay.
Right.
We were trying to come up with a way with a very low monetary spend, if any, or a deferred spend. We give somebody a free day off in their next contract school year. They can save their paid leave day to either sell back to the district later once they qualify for that, and or cash that out when they retire or if they were to ever leave the district. And so it's just a way of them saving a day.
I guess I'm just getting confused with the word deposit. Yeah. No, my opinion of the non-work day, giving them that as a reward, I struggle with that. And I explained that last month, and I still have that same issue going forward. When we have sub issues, and I don't think I want to add to that problem going forward. So,
so like to Scott's, how many teachers do we have? I mean, we can't nice, but most teachers don't use all of their leave in a year, or do they?
Some do.
Okay.
Some do.
Looking at the entire pool of teachers, 50%, just a generalization.
Use up all of their 11 days in one school year? No, I would say
small
25% would
so
use
like
all of their.
To your point, Scott, if we're adding a flexible work day, how many of them are going to take 12 days off now? I mean, I think that's like your concern. So the idea is that that first day is on us and they can actually add to that bank and pool. But if we're adding a day and, you know, if all of our teachers are taking 11 days off, obviously that'd be hard on the district. And if all of them were taking an additional day, that'd be even harder. But I don't think that the adding the day is going to increase the number of sub-fill, except for maybe that 20% of teachers that are taking all 11 of their days, who would now probably be taking 12.
I think we have that many.
So really all we're doing is affecting their carryover balance of paid days. So you're adding a day to their carryover balance, which at some point ideally gets paid out. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how many teachers are now probably going to be taking 12 days.
But
What
ideally-
percentage that is, if it's large or
So
something.
we could pull that statistic. I did not for you.
Yeah, I just,
But we could pull that. But that's exactly, you explained it much better than I did.
But ideally, and so we just have that small portion and, you know, what if that was just an opportunity to just get paid a substitute day rate?
Sure.
Since it is just a small amount of teachers that does it, you know, versus a non-play work day, right?
I see the difference is there are staff members that would put in a stay day and they don't ever have a sub. So we have staff members that you know, are in our buildings, whether it's administrative assistant, our custodians, that when they take a day off, that work just shifts, right? Just someone else, or you got to do it more the next day. So if we did do the $140, if that arbitrary rate, right, then we're starting to add them to this pool of kind of that immediate pay versus the idea of they may all leave at different times. So just thinking about the financial impact year after year versus right now and trying to to think through, and if we need to talk about this more, it is not a problem to wait till January or pull it for right now, but trying to think if this would be our number one ask as we think about class size compensation. One of the things that the salary committee did broach is relooking at our stipend and how those are broken. Does this rise to the top of breaking into that top 3 or 4 things? So I think Ms. Davis was trying to, by not doing a payout, a little bit limiting our liability of cash out.
yeah, I think the day off
Yeah,
is easier.
I think
Management piece.
I mean, it's easier, but it does have a cost to it. But
Correct.
I mean,
It
I don't
does.
like this
Yes.
concept. It doesn't have a.
Correct.
it's a
Yeah.
cost.
It's easier to manage, but it does. I mean, you're adding a payout day.
Well, and I like Dr. Moss, how you articulated the back end of that, which is there is a cost association and there are priorities and themes that are resonating to the top, such as classroom sizes. And I would hate to, and I don't have an idea realistically what that number quantifies out to be, but from a arithmetic standpoint, we can find that, right? You're gonna be able to provide us that data kind of on an average, what the impact would be. But, you know, when you start comparing it down to what we look at next year, sizes and where we're trying to go, you know, is that the best time and opportunity to spend those dollars that way, or should it be allocated that way? I think your comments, realistically, what's most important, I think has to weigh into a piece of that because we are getting in, you know, compensation, size, what's the priority, big impact spending. So we got to start paying attention to where, even though it might be minute, but where those dollars are really starting to land. I would like to see those dollar figures.
Yeah.
For those kind of options.
So what a good way to do that, because I don't want to overrepresent that we're just looking at those that would use the 11 days and therefore qualify for a 12th.
Yeah.
What is the best way to potentially represent that for you, that dollar cost? Did you have an idea?
I think Patrick was the one that good
Oh,
at
Patrick,
explaining
good.
all this
Let's
stuff.
do it.
So
I like. I think,
Thanks, Patrick.
I think the way he stated,
that, Buzz?
you could.
I
look
mean, you're gonna have a cost every year, which is the 12th day.
Yep.
And then you're gonna have a cost long term of if a teacher is in the district for 20 years,
Mhm.
you've added 20 days to their payout. So that 20 days is a significant cost at the time of retirement.
Yep.
So, I mean,
There
We-
is a
Excel's your friend, but man, that's not easy to just come up with. It's not gonna take an hour to do that, right? So
But I think Kim's getting ready to add that there's a cap.
there is a cap on how many days that someone can carry.
Yep.
So 110 ALD days
Yep.
For our less than 12-month employees is the cap of days that they can carry. So at the end of the year, if they have more than 110 days in their bank, we automatically pay out those remaining days.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, on average, we can get that number for you. I think
because teachers will hit that 110 faster if we're giving them an extra day. I mean, it'll take time. It's not gonna happen right away, or,
Right.
you know, but
it would take a while.
Yeah.
It will impact it.
yeah.
So to calculate it, you'd take 25% of your teachers, add that 12th day. So you're gonna have a sub rate for those.
Yeah.
Taking out your support staff piece because they don't have a sub like Dr. Moss was saying. Then you're gonna make some assumptions based on how many people are gonna hit 110, how many people are gonna cash out all their days and use that to try to calculate a number.
We have a pretty good idea how many teachers are around that 110 already.
We do.
Oh, very.
When there is a forced payout, is that paid at 100% or what percentage is that?
Percentage in the
The
contract.
payout when they're over their days.
Yeah.
It is paid out based off their years of service in the district, a percentage of the substitute. pay.
Yeah.
So it's not just a flat rate any longer. We used to pay it out at $55 a day. And now it's tied to that substitute rate of pay, just like any of our payout of ALD or any of that, it's tied to that substitute rate of pay. And it's based on years of service in the district.
For me, it sort of comes down to cost is big, yes. But like you said, the representatives of the different groups, the benefits committees, they didn't think it would have an impact on the decision to stay with the district, and it viewed it as a token of appreciation. Well, rather than a retention piece, then to me, do we just scrap it and do it in a different way? Do we give that money, like you said, do we do it on smaller class sizes, or do we?
I mean,
Yeah.
like incentives are always hard because you're doing like, you know, from a management standpoint, you know, in my experiences, we were always doing incentives for people that were thinking about leaving, that were thinking about coming to work, trying to get people to work. Those were where we focused the incentives when the majority pool of your employees are getting left out from any incentive. And that large pool of employees are the ones that are going to drive the majority of your morale. And so if you're throwing incentives at new teachers, you're throwing incentives at retiring teachers, that center pool of teachers is the majority of your people and they're getting left out. And this does address that.
Oh, that does make
And,
sense.
you know, a Thanksgiving turkey only goes so far. And I will say that from experience. A gift card only goes so far, a stipend only goes so far. When you're leaving those people out, their voice will get louder and louder and louder. And I think we have to do something to address that. If we're going to incentivize everybody else, we need to look at the large pool of people that are going to control it.
I don't disagree with that, but I think holistically prioritizing compensation and class size.
Yeah.
Is the top of the heap, right? I just want to make sure we're not
Yeah.
sparsing priorities based on, you know, mining incentive program versus. we're
Yeah, I'm
going
with
to
you.
really throw everything
Yeah.
up.
Yep.
So
That's
as you get
priority.
the financial
Yep,
picture,
that's where I'm-
help us understand that.
Sure, I think we can pull those quotes so you can see. I think the financial impact of that will be minimal compared to if you put those dollars into the schedule. They're not gonna move the needle versus I'd love for someone to be able to say like, yeah, I signed my contract early and I got that freebie day.
Yeah.
But let's look at the numbers. and
Maybe
see-
it provides an additional teacher where it's needed. That's
Right.
classrooms.
Yeah, I'd like to see it in priority list.
Absolutely. So we'll hold on that piece.
Yeah, and to Susan's point, I mean, we
Okay.
basically have three options, right? Maybe at the end of the day, we end up scrapping that little
Yep.
part of the policy.
Not
altogether.
meaning it's bad, it's
Yeah.
just maybe right now is not timing it.
Or that's not attractive enough,
Right.
right? Who knows?
On the liquidated damages, you want to discuss that further?
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that I mean, we just have to be comfortable with making a commitment that, military and medical are gonna be the reasons we would waive it. every other reason, regardless of
Well, that they have to
emotions.
document it.
Yes. But, you know, if we're gonna make this change, we can't obviously commit to future boards, they can do whatever they want, but I think we need to be comfortable with if it's outside of military or medical, regardless of the situation, we should be committed to assessing damages.
And that is why I like it, just being through so many of these things, it takes the black and white out of it. I mean, the gray out of it, it makes it black and white. It's not me, oh, I really like that person, oh, it's really hard, or there's another situation. But it's something that we can prove. We can prove they're either having a medical problem or a military transfer. Personally, that's why I like it.
Yeah.
But
I appreciate the clarity. I mean, as we have sat through some of those, it makes it a lot simpler to be able to say, we do have this, we do not have this, and that makes our answer clear.
I think my questions around the liquidated damages, obviously, I think everybody remembers my concerns about making sure that it's not a net negative, because there are scenarios where this is a net negative to an individual that signs a contract and that they have to leave early. That's a gray area to me that I'm uncomfortable with.
can that be put in there somehow? I mean,
Yeah, and it's not in there right
No,
now.
right.
Yeah.
Put in.
Right.
So
I'm not
are you
saying
speaking to specifically to ensuring that the hours we ask the employee to work?
I think you had a line that says 5% of the base salary not to exceed $3,000 or earned wages.
Based on what rate?
Total earnings, I guess. Right.
So I guess my
So
question
if,
was
if,
kind
if
of
they
what you-
resign and they've only gotten and they fall under this criteria of 5% or $3,000, but we've only paid them out $1,500, we're assessing them $3,000, or I guess it'd be the 5% of 1,500.
Well, so can we
it's less.
take this scenario? Somebody signs their contract after it's issued in March, and then they resign in August, and their first paycheck is September.
Yeah.
They've earned no wages, so are you okay with them paying no liquidated damages to have to locate a teacher?
For a teacher.
See,
Well, and I understand that's a
Yeah,
really
yeah.
difficult
wanna make sure
situation.
You're looking at it from the legal standpoint.
I'm just
Can't
looking
we-
at it from that gray area, because if they did work for a week, right? To me, they worked for a week. So in this scenario, the compensated damages or the liquidated damages would be more than what they probably earned for the 1 week, right? So they would be in a net negative. I'm uncomfortable with that situation as an employer, right? So, and yes, it puts us in an awful position. From an employment situation, trying to backfill that position. But that gray area makes me nervous. So
the memo mentions that this requires further discussion before a final resolution.
Yeah.
Can we work with our attorney and get some legal opinion and check
We've
with
already
MSBA?
reviewed it. It's been in our current policy, it's been in our current contracts, applied liquidated damages. This is a modification of that. I did consult with MSBA to see if there was anything that we needed to do differently, if there was a concern, and that there was, this is all okay.
Yep.
In their minds. I can reach out to Ed Council or Gwen Mundorf if we would like a second opinion. Happy to do that.
Yeah, I don't have any notion of what the calls might be associated around from what Scott's really getting at from the gray area. But from my standpoint, if it's not a medical issue or it's, not military leave and it's enacted because they want to take a different avenue, career path, or whatever that might be, they still create an opportunity where we have to go out and spend additional funds to find how we better serve our kids. And I think from my perspective, we should be able to recoup some of that cost regardless if they've earned a paycheck or not. But I'm not a labor law expert.
And I would hope they factor that penalty into the decision.
It would, and that's,
Right.
they willingly signed the
Yes.
contract with us, so.
Yeah, and from looking at the other school districts, nobody else does that. I'm not saying that doesn't make it right, but have they looked at it before? It wasn't a problem. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm intrigued with the range of what local school districts do.
It's all over the
It's
board.
all over the
Yeah.
place. What interest, like,
But I think just a plan to circle back and cross the T's, dot the I's with legal to make sure, and then from there.
Yeah.
And then the last piece of that policy was, the early resignation incentive, and, I'm getting the sense that that's not an area that we want to continue to explore, but I just wanted to make sure I was receiving that information correctly. Do you guys want to dive into that one a little bit?
I'll share my personal opinion, kind of back to some of the discussion we've had. If we think it's gonna move the needle and we're spending those precious dollars on, great. If we don't think it's gonna move the needle and it's not a top priority, I think we've got other identified high priorities that I'd rather spend the dollars on.
Yeah, and I absolutely understand that, it's an early timeline. If I'm looking at it from like my desk, I'm thinking if I can have someone let me know early in January or February that they are planning on seeking employment elsewhere, that opens the door for us for recruitment. Would a small monetary incentive actually move the needle on that? I don't know if it would. It would just be something that we would try. But investing those dollars, I completely understand if we want to take those dollars and invest them elsewhere.
I'm trying to remember, do any other districts have that? I was looking at the.
North Kansas City does. It does not move the needle.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as Jeff, to be honest. I think as we start prioritizing, I think we just have to keep that in mind, and if it starts to become an issue, I think it's something we can revisit. Like it seems to be creating a huge pain point because we have so many people, right up into contract period saying, "Hey, I'm not coming back." And we're seeing huge, loss rates of people leaving and exiting. I think absolutely we could revisit it, but for me, it makes more sense to kind of prioritize every bit of funds and dollars we can towards the top priorities.
I guess though, one thing to keep in mind too is if it doesn't move the needle, then we're not having to pay either. If nobody's taking advantage of it, there's no dollars attached to it. If people are taking advantage of it, then it's giving us that early chance to look for quality people coming in.
What about if people say they're gonna stay, we take them, and then when contract time comes, they say they're not. They don't
Are you
sign their contract.
talking about with the stay incentive?
Yeah.
That would just be a day they wouldn't receive that day till they showed up to work the following year.
Oh, no, this was for,
This is the separation. Leave it early.
The early.
Sorry,
release. Yeah,
my
no worries. There's a lot in there.
my fault.
There's a lot in.
So I guess maybe additional discussion on that one, and as we look at the other ones, as you bring some of that back, maybe bring back, because this one even came with no recommendation at this time, right?
Okay.
So with that, am I sensing that the board is supportive of voting tonight on adding the $1,000 early notification for classified staff? And the others bring back for additional discussion based on the feedback this evening?
That's good. Yeah.
If that's the case, I would entertain a motion to add a $1,000 early notification incentive of retirement for classified staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. There are no further discussion. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Good information, Kim. It's well written, so we can talk about it.
Going back, to, 11.1, the audit, it was an action item. So if, folks have no additional questions on the audit, I would entertain a motion to approve the audit as presented. So
Second.
we have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Moss, for catching that.
That's Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
I'm trying to be a good secretary.
taking
Clearly, I missed that when it went by, but got it.
Karen, we're,
Appreciate it. We,
Karen, we're thinking of you, praying for you, and miss you. So
I texted her and she said that she misses us too, but she's sitting by the fire with her mom, looking at the fire, and that's something her dad really liked. So she said to tell everybody hi.
all right, 10.3 board committees.
You just,
So you just.
Well, you didn't tell me.
they pointed at you in the meeting.
I guess. All right.
Keep it
Us
going.
over here earlier.
keep
I
it going,
did.
keep it going.
I did throw that to Patrick. didn't I?
Right.
All right, so we had an in-depth conversation on comparable school districts, and what to use moving forward. We are integrating, student achievement, into that, and those metrics will not be available until the 18th. So we are planning on having 2 meetings in January. We're finding difficulty finding a comparable school district around the St. Louis region. Although we would really like to. Obviously, we know why there's issues with that and not. However, we've got it narrowed down to 8 to 10 districts. Is that about right?
Yes.
Yes,
8 to 10. So in January, we'll narrow it down even further.
Scott, was revenue criteria for,
Assess valuation per pupil
thank you.
or ADA. Right.
Yes.
Uh,
average daily attendance.
So that's one of the criteria. Revisited some of our criteria conversation from last month too. Specifically around the conversation, at least my point was about the reserve ratio, because some of those ratios have one-time money in it still. So we don't necessarily want to eliminate some of those for having a higher reserve ratio than necessary. So we're revisiting some of those conversations. So it'll be exciting when we get the student achievement data in and start meshing all this together with the other measurables. And Robert, I do believe, is going to head and starting to pull the data for Platte County and Kearney, because we can all guarantee that those will at least be 2 comparables going forward. So he'll start that process, and then we'll add the student achievement data. And then in the first meeting in January, we'll narrow it down even more for comparable school districts. So, and then set the goals by middle of January for our January school board meeting. So then we're meeting the February financial workshop. So that's where we're at. Did I forget anything, Patrick, Stacia?
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay.
Just the dates of the 2 meetings are January 8th and January 17th.
I believe one of the topics you've been discussing is how to potentially add community members to committees. Any update on that?
No, we've spent so much time on just the comparable conversations and just trying to get the framework still. We have had initial conversations about that towards the end of a couple meetings, but we're still just trying to get the framework and put relevant information together. But we do have the framework put together for that, but we haven't went back and revisited it.
Great. I think that'd be good for the entire board to kind of look at and review as it'll kind of apply across, and knowing that that's been a heated topic in a variety of districts in the area.
Yeah, we feel like once we get set in our foundation, like here's our comparable school districts, here's our metrics, and we're gonna be able to take a deep breath and then kind of
Get to
you know, spend time on that. And then, you know, then I think that'll kind of mesh in with the budget and the deferred maintenance part that we'll bring in the springtime too. Right.
That's good.
Any additional questions? Thank you all for the extra work. Greatly appreciated. We'll move on to 11.2 high school Chromebook refresh.
Oh, I'll try this one. Yeah, so this year we do have the Chromebooks lease is expiring. And that previously was 1,000 devices. At the time that we ordered those devices, we had about 17 students. It's always hard to, with the ebb and flow of students going up and down, exactly how many devices will need to last. But at that time, when we had 917, we ended up with, we have about 15 left now. We're kind of scraping the barrel, but I think we'll be fine making it through. But Julie can attest. She runs the student repair program we have. 4 years is a long time to make the devices last, and this has been a rough year trying to keep the devices we have in the students' hands. A lot of repairs this year. So we're hoping that the new devices, you know, will maybe last a little bit better than the previous. But this will also be, we're going to expand this over 4 years as well. And so I don't know if you have any questions for the quotes that I put out and which vendor I had selected.
I did have one question. How many participate in the insurance program currently? What's that percentage?
So that's I don't have a graph on it, but if I were to draw a graph, when we first started the program, it was just the high school, and we had a very, you know, pretty high take rate, and it has just, you know, it's gone down, you know, since we've had a, you know, difficult time. We think there's probably various reasons for that. It is, you know, I kind of have the philosophy that that if it's more than 3 steps, people probably aren't going to do it. And unfortunately, the process of paying, you know, insurance is more than 3 steps. You have to go to a third-party site. We are trying to change that and get everything integrated, but yes, the insurance take is it drops off every year. It gets more difficult to get families to purchase, and that is an option. Just, you know, to where, and if there are any breaks that no matter what happens to it, even if it gets ran over, that it won't go above $25. We do not cover intentional. The student punches their device, then you know, we give the students the benefit of the doubt there usually. But if there is an accident, you know, they leave their Chromebook on their roof, then that is still covered if they do get insurance. So it is something good to kind of shield that, but it is a lower take rate.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. I wish more would. It saved me a lot of money having 2 kids go through it.
Is it not a requirement? Maybe it's just presented this way in elementary school where if they want to take their Chromebooks home, they have to have the insurance.
So initially that there was somewhat of an incentive, you know, because if they were bringing their device home, obviously it's more of a risk that would be broken. The problem that we have, like for instance, at the high school, if we were to try to take in their device, if they don't pay for insurance, we don't have enough room to put all these devices. I've calculated we'd probably have to be at like 96, 97% of parents signing up for us to even be able to have room to collect all those devices when you've got, you know, over 900 like at the high school or any other school. So that's not really feasible anymore to really do, unfortunately. So we're trying to find other incentives, you know, so that parents might sign up if they could see, you know, the value there that, hey, things do happen, things do break. But if a screen breaks on most devices, that's anywhere from $60, $80, and we don't mark that up. That's the cost that we have. And I try to get the cheapest price that I can possibly get for the Chromebook parts. So, and that's exactly where we come up with our pricing. I mean, I deal straight with vendors in China to try to get as low as I possibly can.
Do we cover insurance for free and reduced?
Correct. Well, so the cost to sign up for insurance, now if we have that is covered, if somebody on free and reduced breaks their device, then that still would be a $25 deductible. But they are in the program, they are signed up for insurance. They don't have to pay the $15 fee to purchase insurance. So I'm glad you asked that because a lot of people might not realize that. If they are free and reduced, the $15 fee is waived to enroll in the program. But if there is some type of damage, then it still is that $25 limit. They won't pay more than $25 for a break.
Do
But
we
that part is not
offer
covered.
help if needed for that 25?
So there's various resources. Lisa Manns, a lot of times we'll reach out, to her. She knows a lot of different people in the community that are willing to help out. So there are various resources that we try to reach out to because we do have families even at us too much, and so we try to do what we can there.
So
Great.
always,
I'm sorry.
always, we have family that had an accident and was qualified. We would always reach out and find other resources.
Yes.
That would never be a limiter.
Right.
And truly that 25 could just be like too
Yes.
much at that
Yeah, I
moment.
mean,
So
we have
I
various
think
options.
it's fine.
Sometimes the schools, sometimes, hey, look, can we do, payments where they're not having to pay it all at once? We can spread that over months. Or if there is some type of, some type of support that we can
Building
get them, we try to do what we can, obviously.
So your memo references some funding activities to help kind of make this happen. Part of it says, if 60% of the high school students enrolled in the insurance, it would make up the other 84,000. Are we close to that 60%?
No, not really at all. And obviously, so what we do with the insurance money, I mean, that goes straight towards trying to, because again, we do have to get parts. So a lot of that money right there has to go, for so all the money, the registration fee, the $15 from anything like that sign up, that money pretty much goes straight to us trying to keep the part that we have. Like for instance, at the high school last year, we didn't have enough devices. So I had to order 20 additional devices, just so we would have enough to give out to students. So that money, it goes directly to buying more parts and everything to support the program. It doesn't go into like some other, kind of fund to buy anything else in the district. It goes straight back to supporting the Chromebook program.
So this has been a
So no, it's unfortunately it would be nice if our take rate was that much, but that's somewhat unrealistic too. But there is at least some help. And then obviously with this money being offset a little bit, I mean, the money that we're spending to purchase all these devices is somewhat being offset by the emergency connectivity fund. But there still is some additional cost to us because that program doesn't cover, every single device. But so there is.
So the conversation with the insurance has been a big topic. Our principals have had a lot of input in that since they're the ones most directed, one most directed impacted. I know the district last year, I think, was the first time, the folks around the table, correct me if I'm wrong, of doing early enrollment. Well, usually the practice is when we had a higher take rate for these things. And if you think of fees, when you enroll your student at a school, you kind of all do it at once. You just expect whenever that happens, you're just writing checks. This was separate from that last year where this came out after July 1. This next year, we hope to have both go out at the same time. And we believe, our principals believe, that can help increase that take rate. Whether we get to the 60% or not, I don't know. But the hope is that alignment will help increase the take rate of the insurance.
Right. And then also, we discussed that, if it's more than 3 steps, that philosophy. So we're trying to make it easier also to sign up for insurance next year. We're gonna try to not go to the third party. Next year, we're gonna bring everything into Power School, which is a common access that parents already have, and so they can see any fees. And then the sign up, I mean, the insurance will already be there when they go in, to where they can opt out. They don't have to pay it. But if they want to purchase the insurance, they don't have to go to another website or anything. It'll already be right there. Right. They can just pay the fee, and then that way it's taken care of. They don't have to where do I need to go to sign up? What do I need to create an account? What was it called again? Where's the link? Where's the training video? It's just right there when they register, and then that will be an optional fee that they can pay. And we're hoping that'll make it a little easier. So then again, we can help offset the cost of purchasing not only parts, but then maybe offset the extra payment that we have to make for this as well.
Additional questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the proposal as submitted. So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. There's no discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next time, agenda 11.3, transportation RFP contractor recommendation.
Yes, so last month we released our transportation RFP. Our contract with DS Bus Lines ends June 30th, 2024. So we wanted to start this process early. Andrea Ambrosian, Dr. Moss, and myself were the three-person committee that took in all the bids for this process. We had 4 different bidders that actually submitted a bid, and that was Durham Bus Lines, DS Bus Lines, First Student, and North American Central were the 4. After breaking out all the costs associated and the rubric that we had with the RFP, which focused on price, focused on the leadership team, their experience, and their references, all 3 of us agreed that Durham Bus Lines would be the one that we'd recommend for the winner of that RFP proposal. Many of you know we have had Coulter Bus for a very long time. Coulter Bus was bought out a couple years ago by DS Bus Lines. We made that transition. We've worked great with DS Bus Lines. They've been great to us. Kevin Stanger, actually with DS Bus Lines, is back there today for this board meeting. But looking at the way the price proposals came in and looking at the references, we felt like the leadership team and experience with everybody was pretty similar. But price was the one that really stuck out as a difference of, and it did have the most weight with the RFP. So we recommend Durham Bus Lines. Some of their best references were Kearney School District, Savannah School District, Lawson School District, and Blair Oaks were some superintendents I talked to at length about their experience with them, and they had good things to say, as well as I have great things to say about DS Bus Lines. But again, the big differentiator in this one was the price, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, as well as Dr. Moss and Andrea would be as part of that process.
I know this is one of the most critical things. I mean, the first interaction with most kids is with the bus. The last interaction for the day is with the bus. And I know those references are critical, but ensuring that we're providing that great interaction and great close at the end of the day as well.
One of the questions I will answer that a lot have asked me is, okay, if you do change bus companies, will the bus drivers move over from DS Bus Lines to Durham? And the answer to that is yes, if they would like to. I can't answer questions for DS Bus as far as if somebody wanted to stay with DS Bus and move and drive for Kansas. Obviously, that'd be between them and DS Bus Lines. But if the driver, of course, wants to stay working for Smithville School District, absolutely, we'd want that. Absolutely, Durham wants that. And so they would move over and be part of our team. And so we'll have those discussions pending a board approval tonight. If the board does approve the recommendation for Durham, we would work with DS Bus Lines and with Durham on that type of transition.
When would that transition take place?
So it officially take place on July 1st, 2024, the new contract. DS Bus Lines will handle all of summer school. Shell, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe summer school this year does not go into July, or it does by one day. Does not go into July. So that's a clean break for summer school. And then we'll have immediate conversations just so everybody feels comfortable. We'll have staff meetings to bring them in and tell them the news. I'll work with Kevin and Durham Bus leadership to schedule that and kind of go through that process.
Additional questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the bid as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, 11.4, middle school activity field renovation bid.
Yeah, so in front of you on the screen, I have the bids for the middle school activity field renovation. J. Dunn puts out a bid package that has several scopes of work. And so you'll have your excavation, your turf, your electrical and different things like that. For this bid, Mid-America gave a combo bid to cover all parts of the scope for this construction project, and they were the low bid. So they will be handling all of the work as far as an individual goes. J. Dunn will still be the construction manager to ensure all the pieces of this are completed as designed. by DLR. Jay Dunn will also handle some of the cleanup. The electrical rough-in will actually be a separate company, just to put conduit for future electrical needs if needed. And then you have the total all-in bid at just a little over 1.6 million. So be happy to answer any questions that you may have on this project.
Can you touch on the like the explanation you gave me so everybody knows what the reasoning for the fencing?
Sure. So last, I think it was winter, I'll just say winter. I know it was winter timeline. We had a student that unfortunately felt like it would be fun to take their vehicle and do donuts on the grass middle school field. They went around the chat track as well. And when they did that, they actually rolled their vehicle and police came on site. A tow truck came on site to tow them out. We assessed damages and actually assigned those damages to that student for restitution. And so with a turf field, just like our main athletic field, we have that locked up at night because if someone did drive a vehicle on that, the extensive damage that would do, not only would you have to replace the turf, but it would screw up the underlayment and all of the AB3 that is underneath that to help that drain. Redo all that, recompact that, and then try to put the turf back. It'd be in the tens of thousands of dollars just one time for sure. And so that fence is there truly just designed to make sure that nobody takes a vehicle on that place and tries to vandalize the area. Could we remove that fence to save some money on this project? Absolutely. The fence could easily be removed. My recommendation would be to not do that because I feel like it would pay for itself in one or two times of somebody driving on it in the lifetime of that field.
And it's not to restrict access or usage of the field. It's for
correct.
security.
Yeah. We would still have, kind of like our main athletic field where someone could walk in through a path and then have double gates. So if there's any maintenance that need to be done, they can unlock that lock, get in, do the maintenance, lock it back up. But yeah, it's truly just meant to keep someone from vandalizing the field.
I have already shared this concern with you and want to be clear tonight. I have significant concerns on this one. I've been supporting this project since day one, but the cost estimates that were brought to us for approval versus what we see tonight are substantially different. And so can you talk through that?
Sure.
And I won't overly labor the point, but the estimates that we approved when we took this before voters and what we see before us tonight, there's a substantial increase.
Sure. Yeah. So what Mr. Blumker is referring to is back when we gave some estimates before we had engineers and design team, our architects on the job, was at 1.1 million. So when they analyzed that, they didn't have the fence included. That was one thing. And we didn't have any type of specifics from how much soil compaction we would need. We didn't have specifics from any of the geotech or engineering, and we didn't have the design team to draw design. So when those estimates are given, those truly are just very, very rough, high level estimates. They were not meant to be a budget for the project. And if it came across as a budget for the project, that was not its intention. That's definitely an area we can improve in. If you look at all of our projects as a whole, that's usually how we like to look at this is here's the projects we're doing for 17.5 million, actually up to 18 with the bond surplus plus the interest. Now that we have 18.6 million, it's truly just meant to say, hey, we're going to do this list of projects for 17.5. We were asked to give an individual number to each one of how it would break out. If it wasn't specific enough to say, hey, this is really just meant to be a truly rough estimate, this is not a budget, then I didn't communicate that well enough early on in the process. And so that's something that, we can do better.
No, I get the fact that it's just a rough estimate versus a, construct budget, but the delta and variation. So typically when we do rough in budgets, it's a cost per square foot. We factor in everything that you mentioned. So who is the GC who helped us develop the estimate?
Jay Dunn.
Yeah, and I voiced a lot of concerns also about this, and I would agree with what others are saying. The price is closer to 1.7 million, but I still want to dig deeper into this original estimates provided by Jay Dunn Because we do have, and we've been told that this contract is somehow beneficial to us. And not having estimates that are even remotely close to being in the ballpark proves that this contract is not worth the time and the fees that we are spending on it. That's a major concern that I have. And it has been for a while with this contract. They're not close on their estimates. And I would like to know, what is it? Did the scope change from the original estimates to what we're dealing with right now?
The two major pieces were the fence. The fence was not indicated in the first part,
That's just 44,000.
and the soil stabilization was a big piece that you don't get that information until you have engineers on the job.
Then what's the impact operationally versus the type of compact or skid load is used versus how long you put in there? So I mean, there's a latency period to that impact, but I don't understand how there's a huge
Sure.
cost in it.
Yeah, so the amount of dirt they have to peel off before they can put all the sublayers on.
So there's just additional excavating
Mhm.
counting on.
Correct.
But it seems like they should have a good ballpark. I mean, yeah, they should have some idea. They've done a turf field before.
And generally, like, and they had 30 some odd people bid this project, 32 bids.
23, I believe.
23 bids.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're not the ones doing the work, but certainly they could have, I mean, of the 23, they could have gotten at least 5 people to bid it without doing that. And those people are going to be within 10 to 20% of their bid when it comes through, or at least that would be, in my experience with construction and bidding, that is very reasonable. If I give a budgetary estimate and I get a PO within 12 months, outside of in COVID, we are not in COVID, or outside of those circumstances, if I'm not within 10 or 20%, that I am not, I'm not going to be that.
So very small renovation projects are much harder to bid because
I agree.
instead of just building something brand new like a transportation facility. And so something I do want to mention is, one, it's my job to portray our vision to Jay Dunn. So I'm not going to blame Jay Dunn on this. If you want to blame somebody, blame me. I did not explain our vision enough, and I didn't talk about a fence. Now, back in October 22, we didn't have somebody vandalize it yet, but then that's on me.
Sure.
Then that's my job to make sure we visualize that. Jay Dunn has done an excellent job for us. Every single project we've done, they've been able to do all of our projects and had savings. We can't say that about a lot of other districts around us. I can't tell you the numerous districts that have passed GO bonds, promised projects, and not been able to deliver on full buildings, or they're going out to another bond because they want to finish what they didn't finish. Jay Dunn has delivered that every single time. And so, just like, I'll use an analogy, just like a great hitter is going to strike out every once in a while. Okay. Maybe on one or two, or maybe I didn't have my best day explaining how we wanted to bid this. But if I had to do it all over again, I would have said, for our transportation facility, because it's a brand new project on a bare piece of land, here's the cost. For the other 5 projects, security, sidewalks, gym, HVAC, and field, the rest is going to cost 10 million, and have big chunks of money, not the individualized price. And so that's where I failed. I should have made that recommendation, because they truly are just meant to be rough estimates, not to be as a budget.
But, and I agree with you, not just you, but the board and the district, we own a lot of this together. But to put it into perspective, every one of these projects, a lot of them are they're not even within 50%. And like we talked about, the positive of this is that we are net in the good. We have an excess of money.
Right.
But all it would have taken is this HVAC being 50% over instead of 50% under. And now, of these 7 projects listed, we're going to be able to do HVAC and maybe the bus facility.
Right.
I mean, so every one of these being 50% over, if that HVAC was the one that was 50% over, we're doing 2 of our 7 projects.
Right.
So that's my point. If we have a 10-year contract with Jay Dunn and they are not competitive bidding this, obviously there's risk that the bond doesn't pass. They have to account for that risk. But if long term, looking at this as a learning experience, the next round, my expectation would be that they are well under 50%. I mean,
So-
this can't,
Sure.
in my perspective, this can't happen again.
Right. And so that was
They own,
right.
not just you. I
Sure.
appreciate you saying that.
Sure.
They own that. Now it's up to us to provide them a proper scope for these projects
Right.
so that they can give a rough estimate. But that rough estimate they give us, they have to be accountable for that.
Sure.
And 50% is not acceptable on a non-competitive 10-year contract at all.
So that's one project that you talked about that they missed on. Something I would say is if we would like to get more precise before we go out for geo bond, then we spend money on engineers and design team. So then that way they can see the things like the soil stabilization. They can see the things like the structural steel at the high school gym that we have to have.
Point to that, though, Robert, is someone who's in the shoes with you and does this. Those are risk assessments that are built into your bid estimates. And to me, there's huge deviations. And I appreciate you being a good partner to J.E. Dunn. I don't speak ill of J.E. Dunn. I just think this feels a little pencil whipped to me, which happens, right? To your point. I think moving forward, though, I think comprehensively, I think what's a good look and what we can really start doing is considering 2 on-call GCs that we can comparatively bid with each other so you can get a scale. And I think that helps us long-term, especially in terms of, because then we'll see a deviation difference, but maybe between companies. And if we don't, maybe it is something in terms of scope creep or we failed to articulate what our vision
Well,
was.
if you get a rough estimate for a project from 3 different people and the variances all over the board, at least gives you an idea like, oh,
Well,
we
it
need to
gives
sharpen
you-
our pencil.
Yeah, did I not articulate a scope well enough?
Yeah.
And it gives you an opportunity to say, well, why is there such a variance?
So just real quick, I don't want to get in the super weeds of a construction manager versus a general contractor. So with the construction manager, all the contracts are with the district. With a general contractor, they take the contracts and they take the risk. And so, so far we've been on the good side because that $1 million savings, we get to build more projects. If that's a GC, they keep that money.
Yeah.
And so,
So you're using construction management, so.
Right.
Same principle.
Yeah. Right.
We can use two construction management firms to, just to kind of compare.
Sure.
And, I wouldn't say that's a bad practice at all. And,
Right.
That would keep J.E. Dunn super honest and engaged. And
Yeah.
Not saying they weren't, but clearly there's huge estimate deviations that we're not even rarely in the ballpark.
Yeah, and it was more than one project, what Patrick was pointing out. It was more than one estimate that they were off. I wanted to do a deep dive on the HVAC side because I'm not convinced that those numbers, those estimates weren't what you sent to me earlier did not have a cost estimate back in October and November of 2022 with HVAC. Because what we thought we were going to do was spend near $8 million of bond spending on HVAC, and we haven't come close. That is, that has saved us on all these other projects.
We did do.
I'm going to send a handful more questions to you on this, and I do think we need to get back to a competitive environment. As far as, and I'm not sure I buy into the fact that just because we didn't have engineers that we weren't paying at the very beginning, because we have this contract with us and with DLR and J.E. Dunn. And the concept of that contract for that length of time was this, we are somehow going to benefit from their knowledge of our school district. That's what we were told about signing this lengthy contract, and they did not prove that on this bond issue. And that's an issue. That's a problem. And I understand that you're trying to stick up maybe for J.E. Dunn, but there are problems with this, and we do need to take a deeper dive into some of this stuff.
I guess I would just ask you guys to look at the positive.
Yeah.
Look at all of the projects they've done, 2018, 2020, 2023. This is one of the few things I've heard come up about them with this. Everything has been on time, under budget. When they first gave these bids, this was October 22. We're almost in 2024. Inflation has been huge. And so there's been a huge change in construction bidding from 2020, we started COVID, to now. Started to settle down, like you said. But we've been on time, under budget when you talk about the whole GeoBond project consistently. And I guess I would just ask us to focus on that. Doesn't mean there's not room for improvement.
But we,
Doesn't mean there's not room for us to improve the next time around about how we publicize what we think the cost might be when we estimate. No doubt about it. Agree 100%. But I guess I just asked for us to focus on the positive.
but this was a bond issue of $18 million. We could have 5 to 10 GCs. in the
Construction
metro-
managers.
Yeah, construction managers
Yeah.
in the metropolitan area. This is small for J.E. Dunn. We are very small for J.E. Dunn. There are
And
a lot of other companies that could.
and it would be small for a number of their competitors.
Right.
And in some of their competitors, it wouldn't be, but
Right.
J.E. Dunn's obviously the largest construction management firm in the
I'm
Kansas
not
City area. But
right. I'm just saying. I guess my point is, I'm not convinced that somebody else couldn't do it either or do better.
yeah, and it's not, I don't think, luckily, we've never had major safety issue. We've never had an issue with their finished product or their work. So to your point, the focus of the positives is a good thing. My concern is with, if we put it out, if the benefits of the contract, the 10-year contract, I'm not seeing, and the contract doesn't address work and safety, obviously that's an expectation that they're meeting. The expectation they're not meeting is that we have a long-term contract with them. And part of that contract, my expectations would be that they understand our school district and the projects we're asking them that we're going after, and they help us and guide us on what these projects are going to come out to be. And my expectation would be for their estimates, if we provide them a proper scope and follow through with that scope, 10 to 20%.
Yeah, I guess I would just say I would politely disagree to say I'd rather have our problems than have the problems of some of the other districts that I've
I don't
described.
disagree at all.
So
yeah,
and those other districts I described don't have J.E. Dunn.
Yep,
they have somebody else that's the construction manager.
So to the middle school field,
sure.
Because like we talked about, a lot of people have been like, well, we're going to get this and that and this and that. Can you just briefly touch on outside of the fence?
Sure.
What exactly that scope is addressing in regards to
Before we do that, can I just say one? Oh, no, it's not. Robert and I have had several conversations on this, as I have with several of you as well. Please know we plan, as we come back to the new year, to engage J.E. Dunn in that conversation. We want to take your concerns to them and start getting to some more detailed pieces as far as you say, digging in. So it's been good conversations. We're aware of it, and we will certainly follow up with that. And then certainly more specific to the middle school.
Yeah. Well,
scope.
Well, I want to add, the longevity of this conversation is going to be gone. I feel like I want to provide this input. I would highly encourage us to move if I've worked a lot with data, and I think they're fabulous company. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying there's an opportunity, and I think either contractually articulating what our contract proposals look like that they bid on to stipulate within a certain range of deviation, or actually just being competitive and hiring 2 CMs or 2 GCs long term, so that you have an avenue to comparatively bid against and estimate against. And then you just collectively decide. No one says you're limited to one on-call contractor.
Right.
You can have 2, 3, or 4, whatever your flavors, and then start to develop there's reasonable trust. Because there's other good companies. They're really hard. J.E. Dunn's just one of them. And I think, I would like to see that as a consideration as we go forward. Keep your contact with J.E. Dunn. What I'm saying is I highly encourage we to grab another one. And then when you look at large comprehensive projects relative to our district, we compare both.
So like, for example, and Dr. Moss can speak to this, North Kansas City has hired multiple CMs for one to do the renovation like North Kansas City High School, the other to build, let's say, an elementary or middle school. And so they've had them be project focused and had multiple CMs on larger projects. That's an option, and you've seen districts do that.
Yep, absolutely.
Do you want to talk scope of middle school?
Yeah. So with the middle school, I wish I had Google Maps up, but on the north end, there's that high jump area of the middle school field. On the south end, there is the long jump pits. There's one running east, one running west. And so some of the conversation was, how do we make sure that field follows NFHS guidelines to have the back of the end zones not hit that? So what this truly just does is take down the crown of that field, because you look at it, I mean, it is very much crown. Make sure we have the soil stabilization that we didn't anticipate 12 inches. We're usually typically 6. And to take that all off, do the excavation with the drainage needed to the north end of that field, behind the baseball field. There's a ravine that kind of takes that runoff down that way, and then to replace the turf. And so really that is the only part of the scope of this. The other part is to have a conduit in there. That's one piece of feedback we get a lot from coaches is, hey, I wish we had electrical on the sidelines, or if the band's practicing, they might want to have dazzlers. They might want to have music there on site. This would allow that in the future if we wanted to run electrical to do that instead of having to run all the way outside around the outside of the chat field and in. It would give us direct lines. So it's really a short answer on this would be it's really just the turf. Past that, there's grass in the D areas where on the main athletic field we have asphalt or the rubberized polyurethane, and then the chat track remains around there, but the actual playing field would be turf.
The insides of those tracks will remain grass.
Correct. It'll remain grass right up to the turf. There will be a small area, of course, where there's a concrete curb for them to attach to.
Is that, having that chat there, is that gonna damage the turf?
So our architect did give an opinion on that. They felt like that it could over time. And so that's something that they want us to watch. We would want to, so we still have some old turf from when we took up the last field, that we could roll down some old turf for kids to walk across, kind of like when you see on Friday nights, or whether it's soccer or football. So the kids will walk across the track on that turf and not step on the track. Over at the main field is to protect the track over here and keep them from getting chat onto the turf. So that's something we'll want to watch and kind of make sure that we handle. And there's hopefully some things we can do to condition the turf and clean it, make sure to keep that chat out of there.
So what's the next level up from chat?
So the base layer of a rubberized polyurethane is asphalt. You put down an asphalt base, and then on top of that, you put the rubberized polyurethane for an actual track surface. So that's kind of your next steps. I would not recommend a asphalt track for any type of competition. So it's not the best to run on. Now our kids are on asphalt every day on playgrounds, but they're not running every single day in that competition. So if you put that on there, it really would just meant to be short term, to then have plans to go back later to put some sort of actual true surface. So you kind of probably want to stay where you're at, or you want to go with the full implementation.
I just don't want to spend all this money.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between the 1.6 million and 1.73 million? The soft cost design fees.
Yeah. So
who's receiving that? How much?
yeah. So design, I can't remember the percentage, but design all goes to DLR because they were the architects on the job. And then they put in an owner, basically an owner's options expense. So for example, let's say, for example, we want to have a contest up there. We would need some sort of mobile scoreboard. They insert that money for any type of ancillary expenses we might have. Now, at the Warrior Activity Center, those owner expenses were a lot higher because we put in all of the weight equipment. On a middle school turf field, what type of ancillary owner's options equipment would we need? Not much. And so they just put an arbitrary percentage in there for owner's options that we would need to add different things for. Maybe it's a cover for the long jump, so the sand doesn't get onto the turf or things like that. That's what that's there for.
So how much is that?
I would have to look at the percentage that they included. Please note also on this bid is you can see the contingencies. There's $48,000 of contingency. So most projects, we do not meet the contingency. In other words, the contingency might be 20,000. That money is returned to us in savings. And then any fees that are calculated off the percentage are not calculated off the full contingency. It's what we actually used on the contingency. So that 3% construction management fee is based off what was actually spent, not what the proposed contingencies are right now.
What you described sound like another contingency on top of that contingency.
Well, the contingencies for
construction.
Ideally, if you hit rock at the transportation facility.
Construction. Right.
So, but we don't get to spend that contingency. it's for the contractor, whereas the owner expenses are them providing us a pool of money if there's something that we need that we overlooked, I guess, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of wondering what
Yeah.
is that pool of money?
Yeah. What percentage?
I'd have to look in detail.
Is it-
I don't have it in front of me.
All right, because it's another $100,000.
But please note that's the districts. And so let's say there's only $8,000 of equipment spent. That money is still ours to use in other areas where needed. So you're
Yeah, so I'm wondering like how much is DLR's fees in here because we know that, you know, Dunn has their amount of fees of
3%.
let's
Is there
see,
management
$50,000 almost, or 46,000 plus all the other stuff, 27,000 here and everything else. But
We typically plan 10 to 15 for any design.
so what is DLR's fees, and then how much is our pool of money?
Yeah.
Because then what we're also trying to consider is $35,000 more, or $34,000 more for a logo, another 17,000 for electrical conduit. So this stuff adds up. So how much is this pool of money? We're just adding another pool of money. What's the intent of that? Since it's not lined item out like the logo is and the electrical conduit. Do we have ideas? Do we have what we're going to try to spend that money on? Because we do just randomly put other figures in there.
so Jay Dunn just puts a
This is
percentage.
$1.7 million.
So those soft costs are truly just percentages that they use for projects. Obviously for some it's higher, some it's lower depending on the project. For this project I don't see a lot of owner options costs that we're going to need to make this ready for our kids.
So DLR is getting most of that $100,000 in.
There's an exact percent in there. I can get that number for you from DLR. But Jay Dunn gives a percentage estimate based on the project early on. And then I can, like, for example, we know what the transportation cost is because we asked DLR to give us those final numbers. I can get those final numbers for you on this from DLR, but they are truly separate from Jay Dunn, and separate from the project. They are the architect, but when Jay Dunn goes out for bids, they're going out with the contractor, putting the contingencies and giving us those figures.
They're an architectural firm.
Correct.
We're putting in a
DLR is an
synthetic
architecture firm.
field. So it's not like we're doing a drawing for a building here.
Well, they'll still do field renderings and lay it out on the map. And then
Yeah, I get that, but I mean,
Do we
the
have
amount of
enough
fees are-
concerns here, guys, that we need to table this and vote it next time and look at it? I mean, I don't want, legitimate concerns, definitely, but do we need to talk about it? Or do we need to vote on it tonight? Is it something that has to be
So,
voted on?
well, I did want to mention that in the memo, if approved tonight, we're able to get 2023 pricing on turf, which is going to save around $30-some thousand. If it goes to January, it'd be 2024 pricing. We would also start to delay, and I can't guarantee completion times for the next fall season.
Okay, that's what I need to know.
I mean, we're kind of at a point where these are the costs with the firms in which we hired. So unless we're going to go out and design and hire additional cost considerations, these are your cost structures, regardless of how we got there and how fair and equitable we think they are versus the deviated rate. They are what they are. We're still within our budget limit, and I think there's a consensus on what we feel needs to be rectified moving forward.
I would just like to understand what this owner pool is, because if we are going to have a conversation about 17,000 for this and 34,000 for this, you know, are we going to exclude one of those because we know we have another pocket of money? We don't have those answers, right? So that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I don't feel like any approval of work to move forward would render us the ability to dive deeper and figure out if there's a true allocation that needs to be reallocated elsewhere.
Scott, if it'd make you happy, I'd be willing to bring any expenses to this field that's owner options to the board for every single purchase. So you can
Well,
see
that's
every
what-
single penny.
That should happen anyway.
Well, we don't for, things that are 1,000 here or 800 here. We have our board policies for purchasing or what we bring in front of the board. And so, but if you want me for this project to bring those $600 purchases or whatever in front of the board for you to see for this project, just so you know, I'd be happy to do that.
Well, if it's just $600 we're dealing with, then I would like you to say it's just $600, but you're unable to tell me what that other $110,000 or $20,000 is.
Well, is there not a percentage in there for what DLR?
There's nothing in here. It just says
Not
architectural
not
costs.
on Jamie Dunn's proposal, just because this is the
I'd be happy
part
to grab
they
that
put
real
on here
quick.
is just Jay Dunn's cost and the
Yeah,
cost
because
of
I could back into it if I had the DLR cost, but I don't.
Let me grab the exact cost for DLR. 1 second.
Yeah, but what do you want to do collectively?
Okay, so 5.5% is for DLR, 1% for owner. So when you talk about the $1,720,000, so basically that's a total of 6.5% added on to the 1.6. 5.5% is design fees, 1% is owner. So 1% puts that at what, around $16,000 in owner's options for us to purchase things. So that's our budget for, long jump covers, maybe a mobile scoreboard, something like that would be $16,000 for the district.
Or it could be the electrical conduit.
If you guys would like to remove that, then that is your choice. That's why I listed the logos. That's why I listed the electrical conduit as separate line items. So you guys could make decisions as fit.
So everybody understands we have another $16,000 to consider when you're talking about line item, the other stuff out. When you're talking about, do you want to include the logo? You want to include the electrical conduit? You also have another pool of almost $17,000.
So if you would like us to purchase absolutely zero, we can do that as well.
I guess my question is, what is this really going to be used for? Is it just going to be a practice, or is it going to be playing for certain sports or other things?
I do think we're crazy not to run base utility.
Yeah, that's
why.
my.
you have to do it now.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine not, because it's going to be used for competition.
Now, in terms of if it's calculated in the overall expenditure, the owner operator fee, doesn't matter to me. Because if we don't capture it in that line item, we'll pay for it out of that line item. We still get that money back to our budget.
So like the things we can think about that we did not include on the front end, but maybe would like now. Scoreboard's been brought up as a big item. Obviously asphalting the track has been brought up.
Mhm.
16 grand's not gonna cover that. So what other than a scoreboard? That's all I've heard. Would we be interested?
So this original project came to us with seating, press box, scoreboard, right? To make it, and I'll throw out the term sub-varsity.
Yep, sure.
That's how this originally came.
Yep.
And at the time, there was significant concern, I'll speak for myself, on, we have other priorities that, going and spending 2.2 million on this when we have work to do on salaries was not something that I'll speak for myself, I was comfortable with. And so we asked questions, and it came back, and which is where, the 1.1, okay, I feel comfortable at 1.1, we can go address the others. So I will share, I have significant concerns approving anything over the 1.1, so I feel like we went to our voters and we spoke about 1.1.
But then what do we do for the other projects? I mean,
You also have voters that voted for this and that got them to the polls. So there are families that are.
No, and I'm
definitely.
not suggesting we scrap it, but I've got concerns on,
But we
when
can't do it for 1.1.
Correct.
So that.
I mean, none of those 23 bids came in.
No.
I mean, so.
Nope. This was the lowest bid that came in, combo bid.
Fair assumption that 1.1 is not an option if we want to do it.
And that's the point.
That's the market right now. 1.6 is the market for this project.
That's the point I was getting at. The reality is, regardless of the deviation of what estimate versus budget it was, what it came in at, these are the low bids. I think, and it's either we move forward with it or we don't.
And we are not talking about an overspend of our budget.
Correct.
Of our bond.
But your point is notable. There's what was portrayed and the prioritization of how that money was allocated is not and how it's being executed.
Yeah.
100% absolutely right.
But so, like, back to my point, if we have a owner allowance or whatever we call it, is there anything that we are desiring or have an idea of that we would like to use those funds for? Or is it something that we can set aside as quote unquote project savings till the end, and then we can allocate that money back to this project if we so choose to? Because we still have $10 million to spend. We have roughly $1 million in interest, but that's only 10% of our spend. So if any of our remaining spend comes in 10% over, that interest is gone. So,
Robert, you felt comfortable the risk variance for the rest of the remaining projects weren't gonna.
love it, right?
And we have contingencies in those too.
Yeah.
So even if it does go over,
Yeah.
contingencies built in, so it doesn't take that over budget.
But the contingencies are factored into that 10 million spend.
Correct.
So
yeah.
I'm saying if we have contingencies in that 10 million, but because we got lucky and our bonds sold well, we have an extra million over that 10. That's only 10% of our remaining spend. And that's 60% of our bonding capacity left to spend. So, I mean,
Another thing too is a lot of times you get surprises on bid day. We bid everything now except for the VAV.
Yeah.
So,
and that's of the remaining projects, that's the only one that's out there that could run, or there's a higher risk than the other ones. So I guess that's where I'm at. I'd rather set that. I know we're not discussing what we're going to do with 16,000, but anything like that, I guess I would like to see pooled because we can spend it. It's we're not going to not spend.
Right. It's
a matter
actually
of-
restricted to spend it on capital projects, right? We have to.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you're saying execute all the projects associated, save.
And then let's go back and look
save
at it.
the contingency or owner
Correct.
operated line items, then.
We have $1,016,000 left. Well, where'd that come from? Well,
That's it.
16 came from middle school field. So what, is there something we want to do?
Yeah, because there's the opportunity with doing it that way. We've been re-engaged the community about what's prioritization, which puts, I like.
We have contingencies, but I mean, outside security, the lowest offset was 19%. So if we only have 10% contingency on that $10 million spend for us, not the contractor, but for us, I mean, that's like my low control limit. I mean, I would just like to see us save as much money as possible, knowing we can spend.
Yeah. And the million is on top of the contingencies already built in.
Correct.
It's almost a double.
Yeah.
I would find that as a reasonable approach to move forward, Robert. We operate in that kind of assumption.
So to that end, I guess some of the decisions we do need to make this evening are, do we include logo and end zone lettering and bound? And or bound.
I think so.
I think if we're gonna do this, appreciating that at some point this becomes, again, I'll say sub-varsity, then we need those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of counter to what Patrick was just saying, but.
Well,
I mean, the letter is 4% of the project cost. I mean, it is a want, not a need. But
how difficult is it to go and do that after install?
You paint it at that point.
Yeah.
You don't pull out the turf and then re-wave it. You paint it at that point.
You paint it, but then you constantly have to repaint.
It rains off.
Yeah.
So
rains off.
Just,
It's like
So,
painting the old.
If you do
grass
it now, every other option is going to be temporary unless you rip up the turf.
you
and-
would be more expensive in the long run.
And that's, we're basically talking about how we, ideally we would have addressed this project differently if we had more funds available. Let's not make the same mistake twice.
Right.
So that's where I'm at.
I see.
We're at a point of emotion.
It's good conversation, group. This is helpful.
Good
Robert, I'm sorry this is taking so long.
No, I enjoy this.
I will, I
Sounds
will,
like no.
See, her turn was just about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You need to get some more popcorn. I'll have every minute of it.
I make a motion to approve
the,
as presented,
So
project as presented,
there were a couple options. So does that include
the electrical,
yes.
electrical, fencing, in end zone lettering.
1.695.
Yeah, the 1.605665. Really, it's the 1.7 million.
There's a lot of numbers there.
You're making a motion to approve
Yes.
a spend of $1.72 million. Basically, right? Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
1.72, 1.73. I'm looking.
172. That's the old numbers in the memo. He changed the.
So we're
We had some adjustments to the construction manager fee, which dropped those costs down.
Let me
So
bring
the
this
original
up.
costs were at 1.6,
I don't know if you
1,618,000.
guys can see this.
Now 1,650,000, which brings that 1,730,000 down to 1,720,000.
the memo says 1,695.
Yeah. Oh, because of the savings, yeah.
Yeah, that's what-
So really, it's
100,000
1,685. Yeah, 1,685, right? Because of the savings. Essentially, the.
So would you
I
like to
just repeat
clarify?
myself.
Would you,
Okay.
would you like to clarify your motion?
Make a motion to approve, the project as presented for do I have to say the specific 1.695,778? Is that how specifically?
As laid out in the memo?
As laid out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Who seconded that? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trevor.
All right, next item on the agenda, 11.5, high school main gym renovation bids.
All right, so this project did not have a combination bid winner. Each trade had individual contractors that won the bid. And so again, we had a great bid day as far as participants. Anytime you can get, up to 6 bids, as far as like electrical, we got 6, a lot of them got 4. Overall, we had 32 bids with an average of 3.6 bid per trade. That means we had great participation on bid day. And so this shows the breakdown of the contractors that we would be working with for this project. And again, just to reiterate what this project does is it demolishes our stage, rebuilds that as a multi-purpose room. That multi-purpose room will have wood flooring and mirrors to be able to use during the day for any type of classroom activities they want, and then the evenings for any type of groups that need wood floors and need mirrors to practice in. And then of course it's going to take our seating capacity and take it from 1,000 to 1,500 by using those mezzanines and extending those bleachers all the way up as high as the sight lines will go. And so we really feel like this will be a great way to showcase the place where we have tons of student activities, whether it's volleyball, whether it's wrestling, whether it's boys and girls basketball, our PE classes, all those different assemblies that we have with our students. It is our large meeting space in the gym. And so as Smithville has grown, that gym was built in 1969. And so somebody had the foresight back in 1969 to build that to where we could expand this out. And so to spend those dollars, be able to do that, we would not be in this situation to be able to have this project today. So appreciate that person who had that foresight in 1969. Be happy to answer any questions. One thing to please note, we've done this in phases. So last summer, of course, we knocked out the mezzanine walls and did some of that work already. In October, you guys purchased or approved the purchase of the bleachers. So that way they could start the design, because it takes a long time to get that done. And then this is the very last piece to this project, which is the stage, and then finishing off all the other construction projects related to the gym.
What is the cost for the first 2 phases?
Let me bring that up. So all in last summer, we were 340,000. And then for the bleachers, all in, we were 410,000. So we've spent 750,000 to date. And then we have this piece that we're adding on today is the last piece.
Which is another 1.1 million.
If once you count the architect's design fees and any type of owner's options. Now, owner's options for this one will be more, because you'll have to, for example, pad that that new wall that's in there for the stage. You'll have, things in the multi-purpose room that you'll have furniture in there and things like that. And so there will be a little bit more owner's options for this than there was on the middle school field. But all in with all design fees together, 1.15 million. But just the construction side of it, with Jay Dunn, the contractors, it is the total you see on the screen right there.
So we're at almost $1.9 million for the high school
That is correct.
gym expansion.
A big piece of this was the structural steel that's having to go in the locker rooms, because the weight capacity of the bleachers, and compact that with, when you calculate these things, you have to assume your bleachers are full people. And so when they measure those load capacities, they have to build this for maximum load capacity for a packed house. And so there's a big structural steel piece to this.
How much is that steel piece?
So that was basically most of the concrete and the structural steel that you see line item 2 and 3.
84,000, 85,000.
And then with
So the concrete as well.
150,000 more.
Correct.
With that space, we had talked about whether dazzlers
Sure.
or robotics. I'm just imagining robotics, mirrors, glass launching things.
May not be
like
the right
thought
place for
through.
robotics.
What?
May not be the right place for robotics, depending on the competition.
mean-
Well, and it's,
What? You can,
sounds like the Dazzlers are not going to use that space.
I know. Yeah, go ahead.
It's not. I think that
yeah.
As far as
So they'd be able to do small group, may not be able to have the team, but small group. We also have color guard. We also have cheer. And so we also have other groups we're wanting to try to accommodate with this as well. And so, I know that Miss Simon is, give us the feedback that I just wish it was bigger. I wish it was bigger too. But this is our next best thing right now. And it also tries to accommodate a lot of other groups that would like to use the space too. Also part of this expense was the restrooms last summer that we renovated across from the gym. And so that is something that we did add on. So if someone might want to say, hey, it's a little over the bid, we made that decision to pull the trigger on the restrooms. So we can't put that blame on an estimator. That's something we decided to do. So please remember that as well. That was a decent spend for those restrooms. Well needed, no doubt about it. But yeah, but please note that as well when we think about what their original number was versus what's being spent. Those restrooms are something we added.
I guess I'm struggling with this because I've been to some pretty neat gyms lately, and a lot of them are open. They have seating back there. So the idea of closing it, I understand for the space needed, but then it sounds like, will they be utilized back there? I don't just want to do all this project and it just become as a large storage room essentially.
Yeah.
So it's hard to.
Yeah. So I'm very familiar with a space that took that old stage and made seating.
Yeah.
Black County School District. That's what they decided to do with their original gym they renovated. When we first went to this design concept and we talked to all the coaches, talked to the PE teachers, athletic directors, we looked at that concept and they did not think that concept would be best for us. And so that was unanimous. And so that's the reason why we did not look at using that as additional seating.
We wanted more space for. Yeah, I just want to make sure it's utilized and not just a $2 million storage.
Right.
Well, that's just the stage is a small piece of the total cost of this.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
But space is a
We have a commitment from anybody to utilize that space.
cheer and color guard have said they would definitely use the space. Yeah, so the stage comes out, so your floor level is the same level as the gym floor. So then you have a very high space above that for whatever might be needed in that multi-purpose room. yeah, I took the feedback of the groups we brought into those spaces, and this was the feedback of those groups. It wasn't maybe what everybody wanted, but it's what the consensus was of what the groups had.
I just feel for, take Dazzlers, for example. It's like they don't have this.
But we're constrained there on what we can do.
I know. I just
We
hate
can't
that.
make it any bigger than it is.
I wish I could make it bigger. I do.
It's
Ideally, we'd be able to knock it out, but we have the auxiliary gym that backs up to there, and we're limited by that auxiliary gym behind it.
So how big is this pool of owner fees on this one?
15%. Not the owner fees, but between DLR and the owner fees, that's roughly 15%.
We got roughly 150,000 at play.
140 something.
And what is our policy as far as how much you have to bring back to the board and how much you don't bring back to the board?
So formal bids are anything over $50,000.
So anything under 50,000, you don't bring to the board, and regardless if it's bond or non-bond.
If it's over budget of the construction project, yes. Anything that's a change order that goes over the budget, change orders over budget are brought to the board, no matter what expense. But
So
just
we approved as part of the budget process and aware
correct.
of it.
But just our board policy for purchasing, Form DJF has to be filled out, has to have multiple bids. That's kept with our AP person. Then our auditors go through all of our purchases to make sure we fill out that paperwork.
But
as presented.
As far as our budget, we've never been presented capital spending before in our budget. We're going to make that change going forward.
We have for all of our HVAC units that we purchased, the bleachers that we submitted,
But
all
those
those
are over 50,000.
all those major purchases are presented to the board.
Yeah.
Absolutely, with our board
50,000
policy on that.
That's a big pool of money to play with.
And every other purchase is within a budget. And so if somebody purchases, let's say $30,000 worth of equipment for something, then that purchase has to be within the budget that the board approves for that to be feasible. If it was to go over budget, it don't matter if it's 30,000, then that would have to be approved by the board.
And that's regardless if it's bond fund or just regular budget capital.
Correct. But if it's over, no matter what amount it's over in construction, if it's a change order that's over budget that results in a cost, that does get approved by the board. Even if it's $15.
And to your point, Jeff, on the middle school field, I mean, the package presented to the public at least was a $1.2 million spent on this project.
Well, so I was,
or 1.9.
we're 1.9 million on a 1.2 estimate.
And we added a little bit with the bathrooms, but
We had about 80 or 90,000 with the bathrooms.
And then 150,000 with the steel.
Right.
But still, it's about $500,000.
But also, please remember those numbers were back in October 2022, and we're almost in 2024. There's some inflationary cost in there.
Yeah, I was looking at just like
Not $500,000.
300,000 foot level. We're up on sidewalks, up on the bus barn. Like just around 450,000 delta. But we are under 1.8 by 1.8 on HVAC, so we're underestimating. We're underselling what we promised the community on HVAC by almost $3 million. Critical deferred maintenance.
Well, we promised the project. What it costs is what ends up getting bid and what ends up coming to fruition on bid day. We promised the project.
Yeah. I'm going perception piece of it, Rob.
Right.
I don't know what the percent of three is versus what we said we would spend. A total of 8 million plus. And we're only spending 3.6, so percent.
And that doesn't include the VAV. which
Yeah, we're not done with the projects yet.
of roughly 750.
But we have a lot of HVAC issues, and we have a lot are still in the extreme category on the high school side. So at least,
I don't-
12 to 15 units there.
Overlining, because it's just, Jeff, your voice is ringing in my ear. I think our hesitation and our pause collectively is coming from the fact that it was looked to be this and it's kind of morphed into this and its prioritization of fund allocations kind of have fundamentally shifted, which makes, honestly, Robert, it makes all of us feel a little uncomfortable as
Sure.
officials in the city.
Yeah. I wish the bids came in lower, trust me.
Yeah,
I mean, I do too. I agree.
I don't place blame, and we talked about resolutions going forward, so I won't belabor any of that. I just,
That's where I say this is a learning experience. Learning experiences are not meant to be easy, and this is not an easy learning experience. And I think that when these numbers were presented, they were approved, the board approved them then. And next time this learning experience will show that the board we need as a group, we need to have more due diligence in making sure we're comfortable with those numbers and those estimates, and make sure you have the support of defining those scopes and accepting it as a learning experience, because we can't change these bids and we can't not finish the projects.
No, that's my
So
thing. We can't
our
not
option
finish
is to not do it or do it at this cost. Those
Yeah.
are only two options
Yeah.
that we're faced with right now.
But to your point earlier, is any of these owner additional fees that are in here, we need to scrape those over to savings and put those funds to where we've said that those funds are gonna go.
Or have more conversation about it. To your point, do we want you to come on every owner expense?
So-
At this point, I don't want to micromanage, but at this point where the estimates are at, I would at least like to have a better, I don't want to have to approve them, but I'd like to have a lot better insight on what we're needing.
Sure.
And what we're using it for. Sure. So if it's just as easy as just including it in your update, like, hey, we had this allocated for owner expenses and we have to have mats so kids don't.
What if I include all those in a construction update that I do in my executive director?
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Just because, to your point, there are some concerns that, these are rough estimates, 100%. These are the rough estimates the public saw.
The owner,
These are the rough
yeah, the
estimates.
soft cost for the owner options, that's just an industry standard of, hey, for this building, we give it 3%, whatever. We
Based
can
on-
make that percent whatever we want,
I,
honestly.
When I was an engineer right out of college, I designed a brand new office space. You know what I didn't include? Furniture. So we had this beautiful office space that we now had to buy. We ended up using all of our old 1970s desks in this brand new office space,
right?
Because I did not include brand new furniture costs,
right?
And the operations manager is not going to accept those costs out of his operations budget because it's a capital project,
right?
So I agree 100%. You have to have those soft costs, and I'm thankful that DLR does that.
Sure.
Because then we could end up with, say, a transportation facility that we now have to spend money on desks and lights and all of that stuff. So I mean, we have to have that included.
Out of operations, which we don't want to do.
Yeah, no, that's a hard learning experience.
And I agree with the lessons learned here, right? Maybe we do need more due diligence up front, more, get in and do the estimates and have the engineer take a look so we have a better idea on exactly what we're asking for.
Because, we basically push this out to the public. So I think next time we just need to be more comfortable that what we're pushing, if we decide to include these numbers, maybe we don't do that. Maybe we look at, we'd like to get these projects done this total sum. We just need to look at that because we struck out on this one, I feel like, as far as this portion of it.
We were talking about peer districts earlier. We've got a peer district who took something to their voters and based on cost changes, they weren't able to deliver and they heard from their voters pretty loud and clear afterwards.
And that's what I hope we know. We can still deliver all these projects that we promised. And I'd be happy to spend any savings on HVAC. Last month I had the deferred maintenance for HVAC long-term plan. We have some areas, like Scott said, that we can improve.
But to the remark about micromanage, I'm not sure micromanaging is what we need to do, but I would like to at least have administration submit a plan,
more information
before we just start spending savings.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm
these
uncomfortable
items are identified as needs that we like the patio. I think is great. Like you have to have that. So, these are the things we identified that we have to have now that the projects, now that the walls are up, now that the flooring's in. These are the things we need to go get that aren't included the projects, but are factored in soft costs. This is what we're going to go after.
Yeah, get a plan and submit it, so we kind of know where these excess funds are gonna go. And then obviously there are gonna be funds that we'll still have to approve, but 50,000, that's quite that's
Part
a
of our
bit-
learning experience, man.
Yeah, but that's a lot of leeway we're getting.
I'd actually like to do the opposite, Scott. If we stay on track for main savings, I would like the board to facilitate what they would like to do with that million dollar savings.
Yeah, well, that's why I've been the proponent of saying that for a while. But I just don't want us to just start spending these owner fees and pools of money without having an idea what we're, the bigger picture again.
Yeah, like for transportation, that's probably the best example I can use. Like Patrick was saying, the owner expenses is in there for me to purchase cubicles, desks, phones, projectors, tables for the kitchen, office chairs, tables for the training room. Those what those things go for. Air compressors in the garages. That's what that money is meant for.
In fairness, as part of the last bond, there were some additional savings. There was a recommendation and brought back to the board for review. And ultimately, we decided that there was a different priority and we shifted where.
Correct.
Yeah, we were able to do that as a board.
It had been brought to us.
Yeah, that same type of process. I would say if you want a different process, let me know and we can.
Well, I do appreciate the owner opportunity, because that's allowing us to carry the contingency and not the contract manager.
Correct.
to do
Correct.
that.
That's why we do that, because I'll be honest, a lot of districts will just give that to the architect.
Yeah.
You buy the furniture, you buy all that, and those percentages add on top of that.
Yeah,
I take that, I do all that ordering, I organize all that, that saves that percentage fee.
Absolutely.
With that, I know we have some additional discussion on the next agenda item. I would entertain a motion to approve this as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Opportunity to bring us tonight. No.
I got
You got some of it.
Next item on the agenda.
Just hit the bottle again.
If I'm correct, 11.6 supplemental pay A for December 2023. For reference, Mrs. Carlisle has a relative in this, so we'll be abstaining from this vote. So we'll actually roll call this one. Any questions on this one?
I make a motion to approve 11.6 supplemental pay A as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay, we will roll call. Mr. Saxton,
Yes.
Mr. Nichols,
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker, Mr. Blumker, aye.
Yes.
Mr. Jacoby,
Yes.
Cud,
Yes.
Mrs. Carlisle. Abstain. Thank you. Motion carries 6-0 with one abstention. Similarly, 11.7, Mr. Nichols and Mr. Saxton have relatives on this list, so,
I do too, actually. They're on this one too.
okay. All right.
We did not catch that.
Do we have enough?
Four.
We do.
I guess we have four. Yeah.
We have 4, so. Um,
Okay.
we do
I
have
move
4.
that we approve this as presented.
Second. Or Stacey's got a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Aye.
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 Kobe,
Aye.
abstain.
Abstain.
Got that?
Yeah.
Think we have it on video as well. So, all right. Thank you all very much for your assistance in that, and thank you for catching that. Mrs. Carlisle. 12.1. Unless there's anything additional.
I just have a quick question.
I think we got
When are we doing, we'll usually have a list of the dates. I know it's usually in your memo of all the dates coming up
It is in the memo.
for the, will you remind me of the recognition?
The 29th.
January 29th. And Ian, you had requested to have it here. That will be very difficult for our food service people because of having to move all of the dishes, not having the proper equipment close by, keeping the food warm. So,
I get it.
okay, I appreciate that. Then I'll reserve the
Can we bring our own chairs?
I will, you know what? We will move
It's a good-
those
ask 'em
tables
for a
out
friend.
and you will have cushioned chairs. So I'm not gonna make you sit on the cafeteria table.
Hey, us old folks over here as we're referenced earlier.
Ian's throwing barbs out.
Okay, I gotta rush tomorrow.
All right, no, hang on. I'll entertain
Oh,
a
I thought
motion
we
to
did it.
adjourn.
Okay, we didn't do that yet. So moved.
Second.
Okay, who moved?
Susan.
Susan and
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the board will reconvene in 10 minutes in an executive session here. So we've got 10 minutes, folks.
Yes. Thank you.